The story begins in the distant future at a space outpost, where the chief officer is already giving a briefing to his staff. He says that in a few days, Princess Vivian will arrive at this outpost to take up the position of station master. He adds that under this law, all 14,000 people on the station become citizens under the protection of Princess Vivian. He notes that becoming a direct subject of members of the royal family is a rare opportunity, when suddenly someone raises their hand. He immediately turns around and asks who dared to interrupt his performance, and his gaze becomes very angry. The person who raised his hand turns out to be the senior mechanical engineer of the weapons department and, concurrently, the main character, named Cedric. The officer asks how the dwarf ended up at the outpost, and Cedric states that he is 180 centimeters tall and that he is from Earth. The officer says that he hasn't seen the Earthling for a long time, and Cedric replies that the ammunition supplies at the outpost are critically low. The chief officer asks him how the supply matter comes to concern the dwarf from the engineering department. He immediately transfers him to the base repair team, declaring that he never wants to see him again, and goes to his quarters. An assistant approaches him and tells him that a very urgent message is coming from the front lines that cannot be delayed. The officer turns to her and tells her that he is listening to her carefully and asks her to speak faster. The girl says that another outpost, located 12 light years from here, is under attack, so it is worth preparing. She also states that the attack is being carried out by the Xinglong race, and the officer recalls that this race hunts advanced life forms. He notes that there is no need to worry yet, since there are at least 8 outposts within a 12 light-year radius, so they are not currently in the queue. He also recommends keeping this information secret, because the princess should not find out anything to avoid unnecessary problems. Meanwhile, Cedric begins to experience problems, as no one respects the members of the base repair team. They push him aside and say that he is too small, so they don't even notice him. They start laughing at him and telling him that the repair team is full of newbies over 250 centimeters tall and that he needs to be careful. Meanwhile, Cedric decides not to worry and moves away from these people because he doesn't need endless conflicts. Looking at photographs of his family, he says that he wants to return back to Earth. However, he also understands that if he comes back, his father will simply finish him off because he is quite harsh. He also watches his father's instructions, which advise him to marry one woman, have 10 children, find 100 friends, and buy a big house. Meanwhile, we are transported to the outpost's parking bay, where the ship transporting the princess is just docking. Vivian is a very beautiful girl who is also the princess of a galactic empire. Everyone greets her and rolls out the red carpet in front of her to show their respect. Vivian continues on, accompanied by an imperial royal knight named Lictor, but her thoughts are elsewhere. She understands that finally, from today on, she has her own territory and real subjects. She notes that she also has the legal weapon of a princess and that today, she becomes one of the few with real power. The lictor says that this is not the imperial capital, so one must watch one's words and behavior here to avoid getting into trouble. Vivian says that she knows this perfectly well and that she doesn't need reminding, and then slips and falls on her face. The lictor asks her if everything is all right, while she hopes that no one sees this shame. Cautiously rising to her feet, she says that it is very painful and that she does not understand how she is stumbling. Turning her head, she sees a small bag and tries to figure out who could have left their junk in this passage. The lictor watches Cedric and suggests that it is quite possible that this strange little fellow is deciding to block the princess's path. Vivian says that the outpost must be full of elites, and Lictor notes that, in terms of height, he is the most primitive Earthling. Vivian comes closer to him and calls him Shorty, then asks him what his name is. Cedric is surprised that the princess is talking to him. He says his name and then asks if she needs anything. Vivian looks at him carefully and realizes that this boy is quite cute, despite the fact that he is short. She asks him whose bag it is, and he immediately says that the bag belongs to him, not understanding why she is interested in this. Vivian tells him that she trips over her and asks him how he will make up for such a misunderstanding. Immediately after this, she suggests that if he shows a little spark, then perhaps she will consider forgiveness. Cedric doesn't quite understand what she means, but then happily announces that he has a possible answer to this misunderstanding. Vivian is happy that she's able to use her status for her own benefit, as she's a very greedy princess. Cedric hands her a small coupon with a happy face, saying that he gives it from the bottom of his heart. Vivian asks him what it is, and Cedric says that it is a coupon for the second dining room, which he has been saving for so long. Vivian appears to be very indignant at the fact that they are trying to pay her with a coupon for seafood hot dogs. She states that whoever gets to the outpost must be from at least a noble family, so she demands 200,000 or no less from him. Cedric says that he entered here based on exams and all his money goes to tuition fees, and now he only has 200 coins. Vivian looks at him in surprise and tries to understand how one can be so poor, because in her opinion, it is humiliating and pathetic. The lictor notices the presence of strangers and says that in public one must behave decently and not harass the staff. Vivian smiles and says that she was just joking and compliments him on the fact that at his age he is already becoming an engineer. Vivian also says that from today on they are becoming friends, so if he needs anything he can contact her. Cedric is very happy that he is able to become friends with the kind princess, and he is left very impressed. However, this puts him in a much more dangerous situation, as the people at this outpost are quite jealous and petty. They say that the princess is a royal person, and he is just a pathetic person who should know his place in this world. We are then transported to the lounge where Vivian begins beating up a stuffed animal to vent her hatred. She says that if something like this happens again from this pathetic little guy, she will simply destroy him so that he will remember it forever. After some time, the chief officer contacts her and says that he has urgent news for the princess. Vivian looks at him in surprise and asks if something has happened yet, hoping that it is not something serious. The officer states that a portal has been discovered near the outpost and that a huge number of representatives of the Xinglong race are emerging from it. He recommends that she evacuate, but Vivian doesn't understand how she can abandon the staff who are fighting for her life. She adds that the outpost is equipped with the best defenses on the level of a space fortress, so she will stay and fight alongside them. The officer ends the communication session and reflects on the fact that he has seriously miscalculated, because these creatures are using a portal. He is informed that a dangerous life form has been discovered, which is most likely one of the kings of this race. The officer walks back and forth and understands that if the king appears here, it means he has a specific goal. He guesses that they are most likely interested in royalty, since for them, star power is a deadly temptation. He immediately calls this princess stupid for assuming that such a fortress could stop these creatures. Once upon a time, this was truly the most secure fortress in the empire, which was impossible for anyone to breach. But, unfortunately, for 100 years it has never been attacked, so everything that is here has been stolen, and now it is just a shell. The chief officer immediately addresses the staff and orders the self-destruct procedure to be activated and evacuation to be prepared. In response to questions about the princess, he says that she heroically dies protecting the staff. He also states that they are all involved in the thefts, and if this is discovered, they will either be executed or sent to prison. In the nearest star system around the outpost, the concentration of powerful forces continues, and King Xinglong is already appearing on the horizon. In appearance, it looks like a humanoid dragon, and from a distance it can be confused with a man in specific armor. The lictor orders the soldiers to form up, stating that they will not allow these creatures to approach the outpost. The fighters follow him and say that no matter what the cost, they will stand in defense of the royal family and the honor of their lineage. King Xinglong, meanwhile, licks his lips and says that there is an incredibly delicious source of star power here. He gives the command to his fighters to enter the battle, and he himself destroys several opponents at once with one blow. The lictor asks them why they are standing still and emphasizes that they need to urgently deploy a fire network. They tell him that there is no ammunition in the guns and the spare magazines are also empty, so they literally have nothing to shoot with. The lictor tries to understand whether this outpost does not have normal weapons and realizes that this is suicide. The lictor assumes that the officer is well aware of the corruption that is going on here and is most likely responsible for it. The soldiers retreat and say that at this rate the princess is in danger much faster than they expect. King Xinglong, meanwhile, continues to fire energy beams and swing his weapons to destroy his opponents. He notes that it is just a pile of scrap metal, and he needs to find out where the chosen one, for whom he comes, is hiding. After analyzing the surroundings, he finally picks up the energy signature emanating from the princess. The lictor notices his movement and tells him to prepare for an emergency evacuation. The monster punches through another suit of mechanical armor, ordering everyone to get out of its way and let it take what it claims is its own. The lictor manages to evacuate from the metal armor, and now he has a chance to reach the station. Meanwhile, the outpost is preparing for self-destruction, and all personnel are ordered to evacuate in an orderly manner. Naturally, the staff is running in all directions to get to the capsules, which, in theory, should be enough for everyone. The lictor finds the princess and advises her to run away quickly, stating that the capsule will be leaving very soon. Vivian turns her head toward the space observation window and sees a rescue ship rushing past her. Vivian says with horror that this is an escape pod and that she is flying away without waiting for the royal person. The lictor realizes that the deputy is a scumbag who wants them all to die along with these monsters. Vivian starts to get nervous and asks him to come up with something quickly because otherwise they will simply die. The lictor is trying to figure out what they can do in this situation when Cedric suddenly walks past them. At first he ignores them, but then he stops for a moment and decides to call out to them to get their attention. He asks the princess why she is still here, while a blush appears on his face. Vivian asks him if he knows how to get out of here, and Cedric states that he has a clear plan of what needs to be done. Vivian and Lictor are delighted to have found a new comrade and ask him where he gets these wounds from. He says that he just slips, and then notes that they need to go to the production bay where the shuttles are stored. However, once Vivian and Lictor step inside, they discover a very serious problem. Vivian says that there are only 2 shuttles here, and Lictor quickly makes a difficult, but in his opinion, the only decision. He says that they need to sit down without waiting for Cedric to put on his suit, as there is no point in doing so. Vivian doubts such a dishonorable act, but the lictor says that they are carriers of royal blood, and he is just a man. Meanwhile, Cedric puts on a protective suit, goes out into the compartment, and then apologizes for the wait. Looking around, he tries to understand what is happening and realizes that they simply abandon him and fly away. He comes down to the ground and says that he is not that big, so he could just be put into a capsule. Tears appear in his eyes and he calls them lying creatures because he believes that they were friends, but in the end, they decide to leave him. After a while, his despair is interrupted by a terrible grinding sound, and he tries to understand what is happening. The self-destruct system indicates that there are 5 seconds left, and a space beast of maximum threat level appears in front of him. Meanwhile, King Xinglong continues to approach the space station and tries to figure out where the girl is. The lictor flies away to escape, hoping that they can find refuge at another outpost. Vivian looks sadly at the station and realizes that the short guy who remains there does a lot for her. Meanwhile, the chief officer is happy that he is able to avoid responsibility and accusations of corruption. Cedric finds himself in the worst situation of all as a giant dragon tries to swallow him. Moments later, a powerful explosion occurs, scattering deadly cosmic dust for many light years. Cedric sees a strange light, as if he were falling into some kind of abyss, and tries to understand what it is. At first, it seems to him that this light is the path to heaven, but after a few moments, a second flash appears. He looks around and tries to understand why there are 2 light sources here and which one he should choose. After thinking for a moment, he remembers that he has never heard before of there being a choice between 2 different places in heaven. After this, he smiles and says that in this situation it doesn't matter to him at all since he believes that he is simply dying. He decides that it is wise to choose the brighter option, as he believes it will be much safer. He begins to swim forward, and gradually a large flash begins to engulf him and pull him inside. Cedric looks around and wonders why it's getting so dark around him, hoping that someone will answer him. As he gradually moves through the space, he discovers that he is touching something soft, and it begins to resemble a lid. Lifting this lid a little, he suddenly finds that a beam of light is pouring onto him, so he moves even further. Gradually, the light becomes so bright that it even blinds the hero a little, but this does not stop him from crawling forward. Looking around, he tries to understand where he is, since the place he finds himself in resembles some kind of honeycomb. He also discovers that he is wearing some strange clothes and that he seems to have multiple arms. Feeling his head and body, he finds antennae and wings and assumes that he has simply turned into a bee. He cheerfully talks about the need to look for nectar and adds that, like a happy, hard-working bee, he gets down to business. Taking a few steps forward, he finally leaves the small forest, and incredible beauty opens up before him. Looking at these colorful islands, he declares that this planet is incredibly beautiful and that he likes it very much. While checking the soil, he also notes that it is incredibly fertile and not at all polluted, unlike the places he has been before. His home is located on land over which gray-black clouds hang and purple smoke rises from severe radiation contamination. Other bees suddenly appear behind him, joyfully pointing at him and declaring that he is a newborn drone. Cedric turns around sharply, trying to understand what is going on here and why so much attention is being paid to him. It turns out that a multitude of bees appear behind him, all of them female, and they slowly approach him. They talk about how they have never seen such a small drone and remember that this is the first drone that is born as a queen. They immediately lean towards him and ask him his name and also ask permission to touch him a little. Cedric introduces himself by name and then says that if they want to touch him a little, he allows them to do so. They immediately begin to feel his skin with their paws and say that it is incredibly pleasant and very elastic. Gradually, more and more people want to join, and this little boy becomes a real sensation. Suddenly another bee appears and sternly asks them why they are shirking their obligatory work. The bees immediately turn around and become quiet, indicating that this is a representative of the Queen's Guard. This bee's name is Lola, and she is the Queen Bee's guard, who strictly observes all her duties. Realizing that it would be better not to anger this individual, they immediately run away, saying that they are immediately returning to their obligatory work. Lola says she hasn't encountered such problematic workers in a long time, while Cedric says it looks quite dangerous. Lola looks closely at our hero and asks him if he is that newborn drone. After this, she extends her hand to him and beckons him to follow her, saying that she is taking him to the Queen. Cedric realizes that he hasn't tried to fly yet because he's not yet used to having real wings. It takes him some time to learn to move these wings with sufficient speed, and he takes off from the ground. After this, he makes a powerful jerk upward and rushes forward as if shooting himself out of a cannon. An incident like this can only end in a premature collision with a branch. Lola says that this drone is acting very recklessly for its first attempts at flight, but her friends reassure her. Cedric follows them and ends up at a giant beehive, which is supposedly home to the Queen Bee. Gradually getting closer and closer, he reflects on the fact that this hive gives him very disturbing premonitions. However, he decides not to voice them out loud, since in this case there is no reason to seriously worry. Lola is asked why she's not on vacation, because today is not her work shift, so she could have not come here. Lola announces that a new drone is coming and takes him to meet the Queen, while Cedric greets them. As he moves on, he notices that they are looking at him incredibly intently, as if he were some kind of curiosity. Cedric asks where the other drones go and why all the workers are female, to which he is told that it makes sense. They add to him that there are 3,000 individuals here, and he is the only drone, and all the rest are his fighting sisters. Cedric is surprised by such a large number of females and notes that in this case he has no competition. After thinking for a moment, he realizes that this means that his body simply can't handle so many fans. His thoughts are interrupted by the soft paw of another bee, who asks him why he is suddenly so contented. She looks at him closely and playfully asks him if he is thinking of something indecent, and that is why he is smiling like that. A bee named Min Min says that he shouldn't think about looking after his sisters, and Cedric asks why that's impossible. Another bee named Man Man states that only the Queen has the active ability, and drones are intended for other queens. Lola leads him into the royal chambers, after which she bends her knee, saying that her subordinate greets Her Highness. The Queen Bee asks her what's going on, and Lola tells her that a drone has recently appeared and that she is bringing him to meet him. A Queen Bee named Hanny looks at her subordinate with a smile and says that she is very grateful to her for her service. Cedric looks at the Queen and says that he has never seen a more beautiful creature in his short life. He realizes that this queen is his mother in this world, and notes that she looks incredibly huge. Hanny notices his surprised look and asks him what is going on, trying to find out the reason for his confusion. Cedric looks at her with an almost loving gaze and says that his mother is incredibly beautiful. Lola says that he should address the Queen formally and asks if they don't teach him anything in the incubator. Hanny says that there is no one else here and adds that the baby is a real charmer and that she likes him. After this, she invites him to her place and says that he should sit next to the throne in order to spend time with his mother. Cedric asks her why he can't call her mother, and Hanny replies that it's against the law. She also says that they are the rulers of this heavenly island and must maintain their dignity, and Cedric remembers this. She also talks about how she was once a simple worker bee, but luck smiles on her because the former queen chooses her. She also states that all the bees here are his relatives and recommends that he get along well with the others. After this, she turns to Lola, Min Min, and Man Man and says that they should look after him and raise him. Lola bows her head and says that they are making him into a model drone, promising amazing results. Hanny says that Lola is their most skilled warrior, so he has a lot to learn from her. After some time, they enter the residential sector, and Lola explains that all the protected individuals live here. She adds that thanks to their patronage, this place becomes the safest on the entire island. Flying further, they reach the living cells of the hive, in which many bees spend their days off. Lola states that his rank is still low, so he shouldn't even think about leaving this place until he gets at least 1 star. She also states that outside there is a dangerous field where wild tribes and the laws of the jungle rule. She walks him to his room and tells him that he should not leave this place and should learn useful things. She also states that he will receive food regularly, so he need not worry about his survival. After some time, she says that she needs to give it to him and turns to her subordinates to carry out this order. Man and Min hand him a small cage and happily tell him that this is an incredible gift for him. Cedric looks at what's inside in surprise and assumes it's a pet, but they just grin. They add that this is food that is very nutritious and insanely expensive, so he must eat it without leaving anything behind. Cedric looks at his comrades and asks them why they eat insects, since they are bees, who do not do that. Lola says that the breeding department representatives are completely relaxed, releasing such unprepared males. They tell him that they are not bees, but hornets, and that they do not produce honey at all, unlike other honey-producing insects. Cedric remembers this and reflects that it now explains the strange shape of the hives he finds himself in. They tell him that they live next door, so if he needs anything, he can safely drop in on them. Cedric watches them go with a surprised look and tries to figure out what to do, because he doesn't really want to eat this insect. Entering the room, he carefully examines it in order to find out in what conditions he will have to live further. He notes that the conditions here are completely primitive and there is no technology, as if he were entering the Middle Ages on Earth. After this, he reflects on how the very transformation into a hornet seems like a dream to him and something completely unreal. Lying on the bed, he says that since he is here, he needs to get the most out of his life. As soon as he opens his eyes again, he finds himself in his old body, but in a different space. This space is the very place he is in before, when he thinks he is being thrown into heaven. However, this time, a bright flash of light appears behind him and begins to pull him inside. Cedric has no strength to resist this pull and inevitably falls down. He finds himself in a monster graveyard and wonders if he's being reborn and how he ended up here. He slowly begins to crawl out, and this time he finds himself returning to the world he came from. The giant monster that eats him apparently dies in a powerful explosion, and his body is carried away to some planet. Cedric jumps out of there to avoid being digested or getting some serious infection. He finds that his left arm is being bitten off, but the suit's emergency bleeding control is activated. Now he understands that he needs to carry out urgent disinfection, since he has another wound on his leg. To do this, he quickly gets to the nearest source of firewood and uses the magnifying glass of the spacesuit to start a fire. His wilderness survival skills greatly help him overcome any troubles. After he gets a small fire going, he decides that he needs to boil the bandages to increase their sterility. He also takes a hot stick and realizes that since he has no medicine, he has only one way. He presses the stick against his wound with all his might to cauterize it and stop the spread of the infection. After enduring this for a while, he falls to the ground, realizing that this was an incredibly painful decision. After this, he decides to take a walk and reflects on the fact that the entire valley is littered with the carcasses of monsters and that they all died in the explosion. He also cannot believe that he survived such a detonation and suddenly slowly turns around. He tries to understand why it suddenly became so dark and does not immediately realize that they are preparing to crush him. Fortunately, the instinct for self-preservation still takes over his body, and he manages to jump to the side. A space monster weighing 180,000 tons and about several tens of meters high appears in front of him. Cedric realizes that this creature is incredibly huge, and he has never seen anything even close to its size. This monster's comrades fly up to him and ask him what happened and why he suddenly stopped during his walk. The monster looks down cautiously and says that he thought he felt something small run across his legs. And the other monster says that it is not an important problem now since they need to find raw meat for the Dragon King. Cedric listens to them attentively, but still does not understand what exactly they are discussing and what the Dragon King has to do with it. Meanwhile, one of the dragons uses its tail to pick up the dead creatures that did not survive the explosion. Cedric tries to figure out if they are transporting the bodies for something very important, or if this is just their cemetery cleaning procedure. However, he realizes that this may be his only chance to get out of here relatively unnoticed. One of the monsters tells his comrade that they have almost collected the required number of corpses and they need to hurry. After they take out the last monster and fly into the air thanks to their giant wings like an airplane, these creatures look like true giants, and in this land of dragons they are clearly the apex predators. Cedric happily settles into the body of one of the dead monsters and is glad that he has finally left this cursed place. He also decides to take a good look around to understand what specific planet he has ended up on and what he should do. The conclusions turn out to be disappointing since he learns too quickly what this strange planet is. This planet is a nest of monsters in which there are no traces of human life and therefore no chance of salvation. Meanwhile, the monsters are heading towards a giant volcano, inside which one of their bases is probably located. Having risen high enough, they fall down like stones to be hidden behind a giant layer of volcanic dust. Once they reach the bottom, they throw the collected monsters into a giant pile that must be disposed of to prevent it from going bad. Cedric is thrown out of the giant monster's mouth by a powerful blow, but he is too small to notice. Cedric lands on the stone floor and realizes that he could have broken bones, but fortunately nothing of the sort happened. Meanwhile, the monsters turn to the giant turtle and tell her that she must begin making the king's soup. The giant turtle heads towards Cedric, hoping that she doesn't notice him in any way. The turtle says that these products are incredibly fresh. This time, the soup will definitely suit the Dragon King's taste. Cedric suddenly finds himself right in front of this turtle and assumes that it is all over for him, because he did not hide well. However, fortunately for him, this turtle turns out to be blind, so he is simply not noticed due to his small size. Cedric realizes that he's very lucky that this turtle has lousy eyesight, so it's time to run away as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the turtle says that a couple of minutes in boiling water, and the dish with these ingredients will be ready. He begins to chop up all the ingredients that were brought to him into meat, all the while maintaining a strange smile on his face. Cedric, meanwhile, joyfully leans his hand on the nearest obstacle and stops, glad that he has broken away. However, it quickly turns out that this obstacle was not just some stone, but the foot of another beast. The dragons look at him and say that this man looks delicious, but it is unclear how he got here. Cedric immediately decides to run away from them at triple speed, and they try to catch up with him because he is very interesting. Cedric wonders when this nightmare will end while everyone else tries to devour him. He will have to try very hard to avoid being eaten as he is being hunted. Quite quickly, he realizes that a giant paw is looming over him, which will simply crush him if nothing is done. And he remembers that his suit has a special airbag that prevents fatal falls. After a few moments, his body inflates, forming a very elastic ball that can help him survive. The next second, a giant monster tries to crush him, but the airbag works perfectly. He simply jumps out from under this leg and rushes forward like a jumper, developing a speed that is dangerous for himself. After bouncing back and forth a few times, he begins to head towards the giant pot of soup. Cedric doesn't yet fully understand how unlucky he is, but we'll see for ourselves. He lands right in the soup, but the blind turtle doesn't even notice that there are any splashes in the pot. The monsters watching this freeze in place, realizing that they definitely shouldn't get into this soup, as it's dangerous. They try to stop him and resolve the issue peacefully, because they understand that the turtle clearly did not see anything. However, a few seconds later, a giant creature lands next to them, which immediately hints to them to be silent. He asks them if they really thought of rebelling while in the Dragon King's palace. The dragons understand that it is better not to argue with this creature and say that they saw a man fall into a bowl of soup. The giant dragon immediately begins to beat one of them so that he immediately shuts up or gives up the ghost. He adds that he is just a pathetic man, after which the others realize that they do not want to repeat the fate of their fellow man. After this, he angrily orders them to get out of here and never return until they are called. After everyone else has fled, this giant creature is left alone with its own thoughts. He remembers trying to help the Dragon King and asks him why he headed towards the explosion. The king says that he simply could not miss the chance that only comes once in a lifetime. He looks at Vivian, who has passed out, and says that once he absorbs her star power, everything will be different. His giant bodyguard asks him what he is doing, and the king states that they need to guard him until he recovers. Meanwhile, the turtle brings a bowl of soup to a special chamber, inside which the Dragon King is being restored. The turtle turns around and says that the work for today is finally finished, and now his old bones can rest. However, all this time, he does not notice that Cedric has entered a special vessel where the king has been recovering all this time. Cedric notes that he is too tired, so he needs to give up his worthless life, because he still received serious injuries. After some time, he falls asleep and wakes up again in a world where he has turned into a small drone from a swarm of hornets. Cedric checks himself to see if he's fallen asleep and pinches his cheek as hard as he can. He immediately feels incredible pain and understands that he is definitely not sleeping, because otherwise he would have woken up right away. Cedric comes to the conclusion that both bodies are real. When one loses consciousness, he wakes up in the other, and therefore this is not reincarnation. Smiling, he comes to the conclusion that in this case he somehow ended up with two bodies. After laughing a little, he wonders if this means that he is the chosen one and that now something depends on him. After thinking for a while, he finally comes to the conclusion that the human body has probably already died because of the place in which he fell asleep. He begins to dance and spin in different directions, saying that surrounded by beauties, this is his true place. After this, he feels his stomach begin to rumble and says that he has not eaten anything since he woke up. He looks up and discovers that he has the cage that the moth has been in all this time. Cedric carefully opens the lid and says that it's time to see what goodies are inside. The moth immediately starts asking him not to eat it, and Cedric didn't expect that the moth could talk. Smiling, he tries to eat the moth, saying that since he is here, he needs to follow local customs. However, he quickly realizes that this moth tastes like raw shrimp. He quickly begins to spit out what he managed to bite off and says that it is incredibly disgusting. The butterfly is indignant that he is on the verge of death, and at the same time he was called disgusting, which further offends him. Cedric opens the door and says that he will not eat the moth, and that it should cry somewhere else and not make noise. He understands that he is free and can run wherever he wants. However, almost immediately other balls pay attention to it, indicating that they haven't seen the moth for a long time. They approach it, lick their lips, and say that it looks incredibly delicious. The butterfly realizes that he needs to get back to where he just ran out from as quickly as possible and starts to bang on the door. Cedric opens the door with an air of importance and asks why he should let him back in because of that moth. He immediately hugs him by the leg, calls him a kind insect, and asks if he can walk him home. Cedric says it's too much trouble. He's starving and needs to fill his stomach urgently. He asks him why he ran so far away, while the moth states that he can offer pie. Cedric says the pies are delicious and asks where they are, to which the moth says they need to go to his house. After a while, they get outside the residential area, and Cedric says that he is already hungry. A giant red bread flower, and his eyes immediately light up before he offers the flower to Cedric. He also states that it is quite a long walk home, so he needs to grab a bite to eat to get some energy. Cedric says that the man is sweet, so his stomach is much better, and that next time he will eat them too. The butterfly says that the house ahead is his home, and that soon Mr. Cedric can try his pies. Cedric asks him if he loves his sister. He replies that his sister is the most precious thing to him. As they get closer, they discover this moth's sister addressing another insect. This insect is a mud wasp, who says it is too late to bring back her brother. She adds that his brother was sold a long time ago and is most likely already in the belly of some lord. Cedric says that this is very cruel to other insects, but the moth runs to its sister. He immediately asks her if she's okay, and the butterfly's sister asks him what happened to him. He calls her Chiana and tells her that there is nothing to be afraid of since he is now completely safe. Immediately after this, he turns to the mud wasp and says that this is his home, so she must leave here. Mud wasp says she remembers exactly how she sold him and is trying to figure out how he managed to survive and come back. She also states that he is food and should know his place, as escaping this fate is a serious crime. Cedric realizes that if nothing is done, things will end badly, and stops the mud wasp. He takes a few steps forward and says that it was he who brought the little moth back of his own free will. He proudly declares that if they have any problems, they should bring them to him, and gives his name. The mud wasp takes a few steps away, realizing that she doesn't want to get into trouble with the hornet tribe. Moth immediately begins to thank his savior for his help, and Cedric declares that he can call him by his name. Suddenly, the mud wasp falls to her knees and says that she didn't know that this was Mr. Wasp's friend and asks for forgiveness. Cedric asks why the mud wasp is on its knees, and it looks back at him in surprise. The kid says that the hornet tribe is one of the rulers of the Sky Island, and no one dares to contradict them. Cedric says that this little butterfly is his friend, so he can't be hurt anymore. The mud wasp turns around and promises not to do it again, then walks away, trying to figure out how this is possible. After some thought, she realizes that this male hornet is not accompanied by worker bees, meaning he must have sneaked out. Her eyes flashed mischievously, realizing that this was a stunning surprise that she would be ashamed not to take advantage of right now. Meanwhile, we are transported to the Sky Island residential complex as Min Min and Man Man make their way to Cedric's house. Looking out the window, they are very surprised that their new friend is not there, and it is as if he has disappeared somewhere. Lola, meanwhile, continues to look at the ground and says that this idiot probably ran away somewhere. She angrily states that this boy still ignored her words and ran outside the city. Cedric is visiting the moths and says that the pies they make are incredibly delicious. He also adds that each pie has a unique flavor and Chiana cooks them just perfectly. However, he says that these pies sometimes taste a little bland and that adding a little meat would be perfect. Chiana and her brother are very surprised when their savior suddenly demands meat in one form or another. Baby Butterfly says that Brother Cedric has been very kind to him all this time and even refused to eat him. After this, he declares that even if he has to cut off his own flesh to repay the kindness, he will do it. Cedric immediately clears up the misunderstanding and throws away the knife so that this little one, God forbid, does not injure himself. He reassures him by saying that there must have been a misunderstanding and he was simply too nervous. Cedric also tells the moth that he considers him a friend and therefore does not want him to get hurt because of him. Suddenly, a mud wasp comes to them and says that it all looks incredibly touching. Cedric looks at her in surprise and asks why she came back here if he asked her not to show up here again. Mud Wasp says she just wanted to invite Mr. Cedric to visit their tribe's territory. Cedric says he doesn't need it, and she says she shouldn't be blamed for using force. She turns to her ally, the longhorn beetle, and asks him to capture Mr. Hornet and deliver him to the right place. Cedric tells his comrades not to be afraid of anything and not to interfere with him, as he will deal with him himself. Meanwhile, the longhorn beetle rushes forward, hoping to capture the hornet almost instantly. Cedric replies that on Earth he is a master who can deal with 10 opponents at once with one hand. He easily dodges his opponent's first blow and prepares to counterattack. Cedric puts maximum effort into his enhanced limbs and tells his opponent to enjoy the fight. The blow had no effect, so he immediately decided to switch to kicks to inflict even more damage. He shouts loudly that he can beat his opponent to death, but for some reason his opponent doesn't even move. Cedric looks at his opponent in surprise and asks if he feels any pain at all. Instead of answering, he stretches out his giant paw and lifts him into the air so that he will not get in the way. Cedric tries to get out of this trap and says that if he is not let go, his head will simply be crushed. His opponent, instead of listening to his warnings, simply slams him into the ground, rendering him unconscious. He also hits him a few more times while the moths watch the scene in horror. The mud wasp tells his comrade to take everyone here, as they will be useful hostages. She also says that no one can defeat a one-star bug with such weak power. Cedric comes to after a while and says that it was so painful that he thought he was going to die. He asks the little moth where they are being taken to find out the extent of the danger. Moth replies that they are most likely being sent to the surface, which raises several questions for him. Cedric asks him what it is, and the moth states that the surface is heavily populated by dragon monsters. Cedric asks what he means by dragon monsters, asking if they are dinosaurs. Moth says that his grandfather told him about these creatures and that they are dragon monsters beyond the sky. He says that long ago insects lived on the surface, but after the invasion of dragon monsters, a war began. The butterfly also states that the surviving insects fled to the sky islands, underground caves, and other islands. Cedric says that this sounds just like the Star Dragon clan and realizes that he has trapped himself. He understands that insects are incredibly strong, especially some of the more resilient species. However, it is quite logical that despite all this power, insects will never win the war against dragons. Cedric spends a long time considering all the possible options and realizes that he can't do this without outside help. He asks why mud wasps live on the surface, and she replies that they live in empty caves where no one lives. After some time, they land in an unknown place, and the mud wasp comes down the rope. Taking him hostage, she declares that she will introduce him to the sisters, as they will definitely like him. Cedric continues walking and looks around, realizing that these mud wasps have a lot of slaves. The mud wasp says that he is very interested in slaves, and if he does not listen, he will end up the same way. Cedric says that this is very bad, since all the insects are covered with serious wounds. The mud wasp comes to her sisters and boasts about the incredible trophy she managed to get. The wasps are surprised that they have a male hornet and ask if they can bring such a captive here. She replies that he secretly escaped from the city on the Sky Island, and that she caught him and 2 moths, so there will be no problem. She also says that if mated with this male, a queen with the strength of a king can be produced. Cedric asks who would want to mate with her, adding that she might not even dream of it. The mud wasp almost immediately hits him in the face to calm his ardor and show him who's boss. She also states that they have plenty of time to teach him a lesson, so he will beg for it himself. Meanwhile, Cedric continues to be watched by unknown insects that have not yet appeared in our story. One of the observers says that since the dragon monsters drove out the flying insects, there has not been a single hornet here. The flower mantis and the dung beetle come to the conclusion that the mud wasps are becoming too bold and are seeking their own death. The dung beetle says this is a great opportunity because if they lure the hornets here, it will be the end of the mud wasps. The flower mantis says that it is like letting a wolf into the house, because they too can end up in slavery. The dung beetle says he understands her concerns, but their power alone cannot shake the mud wasp's power. Meanwhile, Cedric is thrown into a cell where he will have to spend a considerable amount of time. The mud wasp says that this is the lowest level of the underground mines and that no one will save him here, so he better change his mind. Cedric calls her an old hag and asks if she thinks he will ever fall in love with her. The mud wasp looks at him with irritation and calls him a pathetic little brat, but does not dare to hit him. She turns and leaves, saying that she will see how long he can talk so insolently while behind bars. Cedric tells her that he would rather talk than give up when he suddenly sees his fellow moths who are also there. They ask each other how they ended up here, when suddenly they hear the voices of other insects. These insects are very surprised when they look at a real hornet and try to understand how it got there. Cedric asks who they are, and the moths state that they are all inhabitants of the underground mine. The moths also say that the two insects are their friends and introduce him to the stink bug and the Mao caterpillar. Tiana thanks everyone for their concern, and Cedric asks if these insects are really that hospitable. Mao says they heard how those mud wasps dared to kidnap a hornet, and they will definitely pay for it. Cedric sadly says that he escaped secretly, so the others don't know that he was captured and taken here. He also urges them not to get their hopes up, as reinforcements are unlikely to come for him. He sincerely apologizes to them, saying that he is unlikely to be able to help them in any way in this situation. Mao says that everyone here is just venting their emotions, so don't take them to heart. A few moments later, he hears a powerful voice that says that luring the hornet here is not so impossible. They all turn around and realize it's a dung beetle that has been in the shadows watching all this time. The dung beetle says that they must help Mr. Hornet escape from here and return him to the Sky Island. Cedric realizes that the fighter is incredibly tall, while the beetle kneels before him. Cedric states that he is too weak to be of much help to them, and that there is no need to be so formal with him. The dung beetle says they will protect him with their own lives while he leads reinforcements. Cedric says that even if he manages to escape, the mud wasp tribe is unlikely to let them go, and it is almost impossible. However, he realizes that he has no other choice and looks closely at his new butterfly companion. Looking around, he realizes that these insects are in desperate need of at least some kind of clothing or rescue. He reflects because they remind him of himself when he was just as weak and hopeless. After thinking for a while, he turns to the dung beetle and asks what he should do to help them escape from here. After a while, they are transported to the exit platform of the underground mine, where two guards are talking to each other. Some of the guards are discussing how they managed to get hold of a male hornet, which means the sisters are very lucky. The dung beetle says that the flower mantis is incredibly strong and they must take this chance to escape. Cedric immediately greets her cheerfully in order to establish diplomatic contact and close interaction. The flower mantis says that she will take care of him, adding that the future of all the insects in the underground mine depends on him. The dung beetle bids them farewell, saying that he will move in another direction to distract the enemies. He causes a real pogrom, thanks to which they manage to slip past some of the guards unnoticed. The flower mantis says there are 30 guards at the exit, and the dung beetle lured out about half of them, which is already good. She adds that these wasps react instantly, because as soon as they notice something is wrong, they will be surrounded. Cedric realizes that he needs to stay as close to his ally as possible, and he realizes that it won't be easy because she's very fast. Meanwhile, the flower mantis conducts reconnaissance in force and ends up next to several guards. They wonder what this strange beetle is and order her to leave the watchtowers immediately. The flower mantis immediately rushes forward and strikes several times with its sharp limbs. The other guards wonder what is going on here and realize that this is an attempted armed escape. The flower mantis continues to fight them and takes advantage of the fact that her opponents are too slow. Her astonishing speed and deadly blades allow her to destroy one enemy after another without much trouble. There is nothing in this cave that can compare to her, so her progress is quite easy. The flower mantis calls out to its companion to keep up, while Cedric clumsily climbs up onto the ledge. Past the fallen opponents, he realizes that his battle partner is incredibly strong, fast, and deadly. Cedric also asks her why they suddenly stopped, while she begins to count the bodies. After a short pause, she says that something is wrong here, as one opponent is missing. Representatives of the mud wasp tribe emerge from an unknown location and say that, as always, their stomachs are not working at the right time. However, it turns out that this is precisely why he survived this brutal massacre. Realizing that they were under attack, he immediately runs to the bell to warn the others. He shouts loudly that they are being attacked by enemies, after which he begins to ring the bell, alerting everyone else. Flower mantis and Cedric realize that the situation has reached a critical phase and is escalating dangerously fast, and there is nothing they can do about it. Meanwhile, members of the mud wasp tribe turn to certain insects and ask what is burning here. They also force them to put out the fire while the captives try to talk their way out of it, claiming they were wrong. The wasps say they will not tolerate this kind of treatment, and if it happens again, they will simply kill them. Mao Mao puts on a show and says that they are so unhappy, and the stink bug grabs one of them by the leg in the hopes of saving him. After some time, the soldiers hear the bell and realize that something very serious has happened. They fly into the air and say that we need to head to the underground exit to check everything. The dung beetle tells his comrades that they should not blame themselves for not having managed to detain them, since it is impossible to foresee everything. He also says that if nothing unexpected had happened, the escape plan would have failed anyway as they were discovered. He asks for their forgiveness and states that he will have to face these enemies face to face, since they are the ones who caused all this. However, he states that even if it costs him his life, he will not hesitate, as such a chance only comes once. Suddenly, a butterfly comes up to him and says that he would like them to wait for him a little while. The dung beetle asks him what happened, to which the moth states that he wants to go with them and help the others. The dung beetle assesses his desire to help and notes that he lacks star power, so he will be of little help. Stinkbug and Mao Mao calm him down and tell him that if they go there, they will only cause trouble. The little butterfly says that he knows that he is the lowest creature on the food chain, but he is sad about it. He also says that Cedric never looked down on him, so he has an obligation to help him. He also says that just because he is weak doesn't mean he should just stand by and watch his friend die. Mao Mao and the stink bug say they have never heard such an inspiring speech. This inspires them to take further action, and they say they will do everything in their power to help. Other insects also pick up this mood and say that together they can cope. The dung beetle says that he takes back his words, because the little moth is not weak, but a real warrior. Together they link their limbs to cement a new friendship and a shared purpose. Meanwhile, they are transported to the space near the exit of the underground mine. Flower Mantis and Cedric hide from the mud wasps so they can still bring reinforcements. Cedric approaches his ally to ask her something, but she advises him to remain silent. As soon as the patrol passes them, she jumps down and continues to hold her comrade tightly. She reports that reinforcements will arrive again soon, so they need to hurry. She asks Cedric if he is okay, to which he replies that he feels as usual. The Flower Mantis states that they are almost at the end of the passage, so once they get there, they will be safe. Freedom seems almost within their grasp as the bright rays of the sun begin to appear in the distance. However, they are met by the leader of the mud wasps, who asks him where he is going in such a hurry. She adds that she understood everything immediately from the moment the alarm bell rang, so she sent her forces here. She also suggests that this plan was devised by that idiot everyone calls the dung beetle. The Flower Mantis claims he's not a traitor, and the Mud Wasp Queen says the stink bug has learned to snap. The Flower Mantis asks our hero to step aside, stating that she will deal with these enemies herself, no matter the cost. Numerous wasps rush at her, hoping that she will not be able to dodge their powerful blows. However, the speed of this insect is on another level, so she manages to destroy several opponents. Immediately after this, she continues her deadly dance, destroying all opponents who come close. The longhorn beetle comes into play because its shell is incredibly strong and can withstand anything. The Flower Mantis continues to fight him, but understands that she will not be able to penetrate such a shell. She suddenly realizes that things are really bad for her, so she will have to come up with a way to get out. The blow proves too powerful, and the unfortunate girl is thrown aside by the shockwave. Despite this, she still manages to land on her hind legs and maintain her balance. The longhorn beetle continues to try to beat her, landing numerous blows, but she skillfully dodges them. Finally, he realizes that precision weapons won't do the trick, so he starts hitting the ground, creating a shockwave. The Flower Mantis tries to jump away from her, and this is where she makes the mistake of getting trapped. The longhorn beetle hits the ground with all its might to damage its joints and reduce its mobility. He also begins to beat her as she is briefly stunned, which costs her dearly. Cedric quickly approaches her and asks if everything is okay, but she repeatedly advises him to run away from there. Cedric rushes to attack the longhorn beetle, but as before, he cannot even scratch it. The mud wasp says he knows these insects can fight, but it still won't be enough. Immediately after this, she declares that she can do nothing against her comrade, who has almost broken through to the second level. She uses her stinger to deliver a powerful blow to the praying mantis's body, paralyzing its movements. The mud wasp also says that she lost many sisters just to catch it in time. She says that she needs to be taken to kindergarten so that the babies can eat fresh meat and become even stronger. The longhorn beetle turns to his mistress and asks what to do with this scoundrel they have just caught. The mud wasp says that once they mate with him, they will need to get rid of him to avoid problems. Cedric reflects sadly on the fact that even representatives of the noble species are in such a deplorable state. A few moments later, another mud wasp comes running and addresses its older sister, informing her that something terrible has happened. She falls to her knees and declares that their forces have broken through the passage and are moving at full speed. The mud wasp asks who their leader is, suggesting that they are led by a dung beetle. Moments later, the entrance behind them explodes violently, causing the remaining wasps to scatter in panic. The dung beetle and his comrades appear here, declaring that they have come to help him deal with his enemies. They immediately rush into the attack, saying that they are not afraid of anything, because losing one's life in the fight for a just cause is a great honor. The mud wasp says that these pathetic bugs were just a pile of trash until recently, but now they have risen up. The longhorn beetle says that this dung beetle has skills that allow it to unite others. He also says that he will make them realize that resisting the mistress is the greatest mistake they have made. The mud wasp says that the sisters need to attack, as these insects are not worth fearing. A real heated battle breaks out between simple insects and elite wasps, who are much more experienced in combat. The mud wasp says that you need to catch the dung beetle alive because it will be a great achievement. The dung beetle pushes everyone out of his way and tells them not to block his way before it is too late. The longhorn beetle comes before him and says that the former captain of the mud wasp guard has finally decided to change. The dung beetle tells his opponent that even after so many years, his strength remains at the level of 1 star. The longhorn beetle throws the protagonist aside as he manages to anger him and is about to make him pay for it. He adds that it's time to test whether he deserves the title of the strongest in the underground mine. Cedric reaches his battle sister to take advantage of the chance to get out of here. The flower mantis apologizes to them, saying that this is most likely the end for her and she will not be able to escape. She looks at him with regret and tells him that he will have to go himself, and this surprises him greatly. She tells him that she was paralyzed and lost her parents when she was little, but vowed to protect others. Cedric says she shouldn't blame herself because she did an amazing job and he will come for her. The mud wasp comes closer to them and asks if they really love to cuddle each other so much. She tells them that he is not going anywhere, because he must go with her voluntarily, otherwise she will have to use force. At this point, other insects intervene, loudly saying that they will not allow their beloved brother to be touched. The baby moth immediately crashes into the mud wasp's face to prevent it from seeing properly. The mud wasp tells him to get out of the way, because food doesn't dare resist a higher being. Cedric is glad that even such weak creatures decide to overcome their fears to save him. The moths tell him not to worry about them and to just fly away, and Cedric decides to follow this advice. Meanwhile, the dung beetle defeats his opponent and asks him why he has never become stronger. As he hits him more, he asks if this is all the power he has. The longhorn beetle asks him if he has no sense of loyalty, since so much effort was spent on him to make him stronger. The dung beetle says that his family was killed to turn him into a machine, so there can be no talk of loyalty. The longhorn beetle declares that the end justifies the means, and the dung beetle adds that in that case he will teach him a lesson. The mud wasp says that the little one has escaped and orders them to ignore the current threats and pursue him. The longhorn beetle says that its body feels like it's falling apart, and the 2-star insect's strength is truly incredible. The mud wasp asks him if he has gone deaf and orders him to hurry and catch the little hornet. The longhorn beetle summons all his willpower and takes to the air, leaving the dung beetle alone with what is happening. He says loudly that it is too early to retreat, since he is not finished yet, and prepares to fly. The mud wasp makes a sneak attack on his back and tells him that the traitor must stay here. The dung beetle immediately brushes her off, and she flies off several meters to the side. The dung beetle realizes that the situation is getting worse as its body begins to go numb from the poison. Other wasps say that he can still move after the paralyzing sting, but will soon lose. The mud wasp tells her sisters to give this guest a fitting welcome given his strong build. Meanwhile, the longhorn beetle continues to pursue the protagonist in order to prevent his escape attempt. He gradually catches up with him and orders the boy to stop immediately before it is too late. Cedric is surprised that they were able to catch up with him so quickly, and Mustache Beetle states that he cannot vouch for himself. Cedric jumps aside and says that if they want to catch him so much, then let them just try. This flight continues for some time, and neither side manages to break away or catch each other. The flower mantis watches this nightmare from the ground and understands that there is nothing he can do to help this unfortunate person. She can only hope that he will come up with something to escape from the clutches of this scoundrel. The moths also begin to pray for the fate of their savior and hope that he will be able to escape. Mao Mao says that she can no longer handle the weight of the battle as she is surrounded and receiving numerous blows. Stinkbug asks her to be patient, as there is very little time left before reinforcements arrive. The longhorn beetle says that this rascal hornet is incredibly nimble and must pay for his stubbornness. Cedric reflects that all the insects are already at their limit, but they are desperately holding off the mud wasps. He turns away and flies away, realizing that he simply has no right to stop here and give up. When he was a child, his dream was to become a hero and help other people to make this world a better place. His father told him that if he studied hard and went to university, he would be able to pilot a mech. Later, he actually entered the Academy of Mechanical Engineering and told his parents that he had succeeded. He showed him a special certificate, saying that now he would be able to go to the star and learn to pilot a mech. His parents said he had made his father proud and promised to throw a feast for the whole world that evening. However, shortly before his departure, the city in which the monsters and the interstellar transport system were located was paralyzed. His parents spent all their savings to secure him a place on a military railway transport heading for a star. Cedric asks them how they will survive, considering they have no more money and their house is destroyed. His father told him that he shouldn't be so ungrateful and that he shouldn't worry about his father. He told him that he should take the notebook that was handed to him and not return until he had completed all the tasks. What he didn't realize then was that his parents weren't thinking about him gaining skills and returning to Earth. In reality, they wanted him to take advantage of this opportunity, leave Earth and never return. Apparently, they tried all possible methods, and only this one seemed the most effective to them. Cedric read carefully what he had to do before returning, and at the time it seemed incredibly ridiculous to him. Life on the star was hard, and his parents were his only motivation to keep going no matter what. Cedric adds that this is a time travel story, which means there must come a day when they will finally be reunited. The longhorn beetle suddenly appears next to him and says that it is all over for this little hornet. Taking good aim, he powerfully hits him across the body with both hands to stun him. Cedric falls down, and his pursuers also begin to descend in order to intercept the obnoxious boy. However, at a certain point, he discovers a star on his chest, which causes sparks and resonance of energy. The longhorn beetle hovers in the air again and asks him to stop resisting in vain and wasting his time. He notes that his defeat is inevitable, and if he doesn't want to end up like trash, he must give up peacefully. Cedric remembers the moment when he was among these insects and made them a promise. Cedric remembers that he agreed to protect all those unfortunate insects who were unjustly captured. By a fortunate twist of fate, at this moment his physical body is in a place that allows it to strengthen. Cedric feels a moment of unity between the two bodies and says that he will never allow this lawlessness to happen. A very bright flash appears in the sky, which attracts the attention of other insects who were watching what was happening. The longhorn beetle looks at this in surprise and tries to understand whether this little hornet has just become stronger. The mustachioed beetle says that even if he breaks through to one star, he cannot defeat someone who is at the peak of his power. Cedric suddenly rushes into the attack and loudly orders him to get lost, waving his hand. The longhorn beetle tries to figure out how this little hornet has the aura of a dragon from the Star Dragon clan. Frightened by the aura, he states that it is impossible, while Cedric closes his eyes and tries to strike. His speed and lethal force increase dramatically, allowing him to even pierce the shell of this hard beetle. But having delivered its successful blow, the little hornet slips forward to reach its comrades. The longhorn beetle loses consciousness and falls down, leaving the other insects in disbelief. The flower mantis happily says that somehow the little hornet was able to defeat the longhorn beetle. The butterflies say that their brother is amazing, and this is incredible, because a real miracle has happened. The mud wasp is also trying to figure out what's going on and briefly loses its attention on the dung beetle. She orders them to follow him slowly to prevent the little hornet from escaping and to wait for reinforcements. Stinkbug happily says that Mr. Hornet has broken through and now this boss will be finished. The stunning escape gives hope to all those held here that they can escape the monstrous captivity and hard labor. Mao Mao, having gained a second wind, rushes into the attack, saying that they must be held back and under no circumstances stop. Cedric, meanwhile, is still observing the results of his actions and feels an incredible destructive force. Cedric wonders what this strange power was that he never had, but that suddenly appeared. However, he is not given time to think, as a swarm of insects is already chasing him. He turns around and tries to run towards the Sky Island, loudly calling for help from his battle girlfriends. Meanwhile, a search operation to find him continues outside the residential area of the Sky Island. Lola sternly asks herself where this child could have gone and how he could have ended up here. A few moments later, her assistant flies to her and informs her that a group of mud wasps is flying to the Sky Island. Lola turns around in surprise and wonders why they decided to do this now, since there is no obvious reason for it. She orders everyone to gather and figure out what they're up to, and the search for Cedric is put on hold for a while. Meanwhile, Cedric continues to maneuver with incredible desperation and speed to avoid being caught. However, he again miscalculates his speed and agility, causing him to crash into a mud wasp at full speed. The mud wasp looks at him with irritation and says that he has caused them a lot of trouble. Cedric realizes that he still has strength left to fight and declares that he cannot stop here. However, upon looking closely at his condition, he discovers that his strength has somehow left him and he has become ordinary again. The mud wasp grabs his arm and asks what he is trying to do, telling him to stop fooling around. However, after some time, her sisters report that they are in trouble as they are surrounded by hornets. Lola slowly lowers herself down and asks if they can explain why a male of their tribe is with them. The mud wasp says it's a misunderstanding, and Cedric loudly accuses them of kidnapping him and wanting to mate with him. Lola orders them all arrested in a stern voice, handing over their fate to the tribal elders who will sort it out. The hornets command him to move and slowly approach forward, holding their spears at the ready. The mud wasp understands that it will be extremely difficult to get out of this situation, even if she is very lucky. Meanwhile, we are transported to the foot of the underground mine zone, where the insect rebellion has already been suppressed. Mao Mao says they have been completely wiped out and wonders if the hornets will come to their aid. She also says that not only the dung beetle was captured, but even the flower mantis, which is surprising. The stink bug reassures her friend that the hornet will definitely come to save them. Meanwhile, the moths look up at the sky and spot an approaching flock of unknown origin. After a few moments, it becomes clear that these are hornets who have arrived to free them. Cedric shouts loudly that he brought his tribe of relatives here to save them all. After they are rescued, the insects happily chatter among themselves, saying that he kept his promise. Cedric apologizes for being late and suggests that they must have endured very harsh conditions here. A small butterfly suddenly turns to the protagonist and asks, "What is this strange pattern on his chest?" Cedric looks at his chest and finds a star there, noting that for some reason he can't remove it. Mao Mao comes closer and starts screaming excitedly, causing everyone to ask her what happened. Mao Mao excitedly says that this thing on his chest is a very important artifact. She loudly declares that this is the royal seal, and the arriving hornets immediately take notice. Cedric turns to the moth and asks what the royal seal is, demanding an explanation. The butterfly states that creatures with royal qualities have a special royal seal appear on their chest. He also emphasizes that there can be no mistake, and that everyone who wears such a seal has unique abilities. Cedric says that if you think about it, the queen bee, who is the leader of the tribe, has a similar mark on her chest. Cedric states that in the hornet world, only females can become queens, so it's strange that a male would have such a mark. Lola takes his head and tells him that the queen is worried about him, so it's time for them to go back. Once in the air, he says that they are not finished yet, as he was ordered not to interfere, but he ignored it. Mao Mao asks his companion if it was really the royal seal, and he replies that there can be no mistake. The dung beetle frees himself from captivity and asks where Mr. Hornet is, saying that he wants to thank him for saving him. Mao Mao tells him what happened and asks what he thinks about the appearance of his own king. We are then transported to Hanny's chambers, where she asks her dear son to eat more slowly and not run away anymore. Lola asks her if the mark on her chest is really the royal seal, and she confirms it is. She also says that perhaps Cedric has an extraordinary talent, and that is why he was chosen by the universe itself. Cedric turns to his queen mother and says that he has a very important question. He states that the insect monsters in the underground mine area are unhappy. They are constantly being bullied, and he asks for intervention. Hanny says that their clans do not interfere in each other's affairs, so they can only turn a blind eye to what is happening. She also adds that after they capture a male of their tribe, the situation changes and the elders decide what to do next. Cedric, meanwhile, says that he would like to protect these creatures with the power of his royal seal. Hanny says her son is incredibly kind, but he's only recently transitioned and needs to be safely nurtured. After some time, another hornet comes to them and informs them that 2 warriors are outside asking for an audience. Hanny wonders in surprise who it could be and suggests that it might be the warriors from the mine. The flower mantis and the dung beetle kneel and say they welcome the queen. Hanny asks them why the mud wasp clan warriors came here, while Cedric immediately becomes happy to see her. The dung beetle says that they represent insects from the underground mine and have come to declare their allegiance. He adds that they humbly ask Mr. Cedric to lead the inhabitants of the mine, emphasizing that they are ready to protect him. Cedric is very surprised by this desire of insects and at first cannot believe it. He also says that they cannot owe him any allegiance, since they are all equal comrades who have shared their hardships. He also apologizes to them and says that he is not ready to go further yet. He needs to control his power, and he is still too weak. Hanny says that her son has given his answer, and now it's time for them to leave here so as not to overstay their welcome. The dung beetle calmly says that he understands everything perfectly well and apologizes for their haste. After he tells the mine's residents everything, they say it wasn't a refusal, but it wasn't consent either. Mao Mao says that they failed to capture the underground mine, and now the main plan has failed. However, this does not change anything, and she states that she will have to switch to a backup plan. They ask her what this backup plan is, and she, calming down, says that she hasn't told it to anyone yet. After this, she points to herself and says that as the most beautiful insect in the underground mine, she uses her charm. She asks them if they think that, given her beauty, the little yellow bee would immediately end up in her hands. No one answers her, so she asks what they think about the reliability of this brilliant plan. They immediately turn around and leave, saying that it would be better to come back and ask him directly. Meanwhile, we return to the Dragon King's chambers, where Cedric's main body is still inside. He slowly opens his eyes and tries to understand what is happening and where his body ended up after these adventures. Feeling that he is in the water, he begins to actively splash around and tries to swim to the surface. However, he quickly realizes that these fears are unnecessary since he can breathe absolutely freely. Also, to his incredible surprise, it turns out that his body is fully functioning and has recovered. However, looking around, he again discovers the recovering dragon nearby. Cedric immediately turns around and starts kicking his legs to swim as quickly as possible. He encounters no problems on his way to the exit and calmly emerges onto a hard stone floor surrounded by mortar. Cedric realizes that this monster did not give in, which means it is in deep suspended animation due to its wounds. He starts taking off his clothes to dry them because he has another purpose in this life. He also comes to the conclusion that the monster must need the pool to stabilize its condition. He happily says that it not only helped him restore his arm, but also made his whole body much stronger. After this, he wonders how much stronger his body has become and tries to assess his condition. However, before doing this, he looks around in the hope that no one is watching him. After he manages to dry his clothes, he decides to go on reconnaissance, realizing that the last monsters have left. A few moments later, he hears strange chomping sounds and discovers a giant dragon near the exit. He understands that there is no point in leaving here, and for now, it is safer to stay in this cave. After half an hour, the dragon finally finishes its meal and yawns loudly, shaking the earth with a powerful sound wave. Cedric wonders if it's an earthquake and peers out cautiously to see what's going on. However, he almost immediately realizes that this dragon has simply fallen asleep, and now it is safe to pass by. Cedric decides to act quickly because he realizes he won't get a second chance if he delays. However, he also feels his appetite growing as his body has not eaten anything for a long time, and this meat smells very delicious. Unfortunately, however, the plate is incredibly high up, and he is unable to jump 15 meters high to reach the meat. He looks at the meat with a hungry look and understands that if he had a ladder, there would be no problems. A few moments later, he hears the clicking of teeth from the side and turns around to understand what happened. Luckily for him, this giant dragon is left with small pieces of meat, which are now slowly falling to the ground. Cedric happily watches one of these pieces as it lands on the ground with a distinctive sound. Cedric runs skipping towards this piece and says that it's finally time to have a proper treat. He quickly picks it up and states that he needs to gain strength for further adventures in this difficult world. After trying this meat, he says that it is very aromatic and tender, and he simply cannot stop. He gets very carried away by the process, and then stops only when his belly is already swollen. However, the happiness does not last long, as he begins to feel a strange seething sensation in his body. He clutches his stomach and says that he hasn't felt so hot inside him in a long time. Looking at his muscles, he says that he feels as if all the energy in his body is boiling and he is about to explode. After some time, he suddenly realizes that his nose is starting to bleed profusely. This bleeding only gets worse over time, creating more problems for him. In fact, this meat is a volcanic product rich in energy substances and should not be overeaten. Cedric quickly comes to his senses in the bee world and hears someone telling him it's time to go to class. Cedric quickly gets up and heads to the Worker Bee Academy to gain new knowledge. Cedric happily says that there are many yellow bees like him here and hopes that he will study with them. Lola says that these bees are getting basic knowledge, and she will train him personally to make him a warrior. Min Min and Man Man warn him that he should be careful, as Lola is known for her sternness. Lola immediately grabs the training stick and asks him why he froze in place, because she's about to start the attack. Cedric realizes he will have to defend himself and jumps back to avoid the blow to his leg. Lola continues to try to attack him and advises him to concentrate to avoid taking more damage. Other bees watching the scene happily report that the little workers are already fighting Lola. The little worker bees watch him and say that this little one is incredibly cool and strong. Man Man is surprised because Cedric is able to confidently dodge all of Lola's attacks. Meanwhile, Cedric wonders why it's suddenly so busy here, since this is his first training session. Trying to fight off his opponent, he delivers a powerful blow that lands very close to her head. Lola wonders in her mind if he's really at his limit yet, if he's able to counterattack. She begins to rapidly increase the pressure and orders him to show everything he is capable of. Cedric continues to fight her, but notes that she has suddenly sped up a lot, making it much more difficult for him. At a certain point, he makes another mistake and loses his balance, falling to the ground, thereby ending the fight. Lola says that he is very flexible and his reaction and flexibility are slightly superior to her own, which really impresses her. The little worker bees start to support him and tell him that he is amazing since Lola praised him. Cedric reflects that he never would have thought that the skills he honed in martial arts school would come in handy here. Lola says that this is where the first stage ends, and the second stage of the training course begins. Meanwhile, the suburbs of the Sky Island are becoming too dangerous as the dragon monsters have already returned. Cedric realizes that this battle will not be so hopeless, given the size of the insects that live here. Lola says that they will use these monsters as material for the second stage of the course. Cedric looks at her blankly, and she turns to Min Min and Man Man, demanding that they show him everything. Cedric comments that these monsters look pretty strong, and Lola replies that there is no need to worry. Meanwhile, Min Min and Man Man carefully aim to choose the most effective types of attacks. They also use their connecting power, which allows them to create a strange glow. After this glow appears, Cedric discovers that powerful armor and improved weaponry are appearing on these bees. They immediately rush forward to attack these damn monsters and deal them serious blows. Man Man gains great speed to pierce his opponent's skin with his tournament spear. She does this with incredible ease, causing the giant dinosaur to scream in unbearable pain. In response, another dinosaur shoots its horns towards Ming Ming, hoping to pierce her body. She immediately delivers a powerful counterattack with her scythe to deflect the projectiles aside. The shells simply explode, creating a powerful smokescreen that blocks the vision of her opponents. Cedric is impressed and says that it is an amazing sight and tries to understand what it really was. Lola explains that this is star armor and emphasizes that the warrior's own development limit is 3 stars, but it can be increased. Cedric realizes that this sounds like the ancient generals who needed to swear allegiance to a master to become stronger. Lola says that the norm for a worker bee is to master star armor in 2 weeks. He is also told that he must do much more, and after a month he is shown the results of his hard training. Cedric gains his original fighting form, which allows him to destroy trees with his bare hands. His numerous combat skills are significantly enhanced, and he feels much more confident. Cedric happily talks about how he has finally gained strength, and will now be able to protect others and will never be a burden again. However, he also realizes that his star armor can only last for about 5 minutes, which is a serious disadvantage. The other bees watching him say that he must be doing well as he has mastered everything quite quickly. Lola calmly informs him that today's training is over and asks him to go with her to the meeting with the elders. Cedric can't believe he's about to see the other leaders of the bee tribe. We cut to the assembly hall where Hanny leads his son in, then apologizes to everyone for the delay. Cedric notes that there is no other man here except him, and Hanny asks him to greet the leaders of the other clans. Cedric politely calls them his beautiful sisters, after which he introduces himself by name and greets them. He is immediately surrounded by beautiful girls who say that this baby is very charming. They also state that if they were younger, they would definitely want to have his offspring, and Cedric realizes that he has fallen into a trap. After some time, another queen approaches them and states that they haven't seen each other for a long time. This great creature is the queen of the bumblebees, who also came here not alone, but with her daughter. Hanny says that this is another large branch of the bee tribe, possessing incredible strength and power. The bumblebee queen's daughter Vivian bows to the queen and says that she welcomes her. After this, she also greets Cedric and says that she often hears him mentioned in the clan. Cedric bows to her and states that he is also very pleased to meet her, noting that he has already heard of her. Hanny says that she is a very polite little princess, and the Bumblebee Queen notes that she is a very quick learner. She also turns to the main character and asks him to show her daughter the area so that she doesn't get bored. Cedric suggests that they play in the garden because there are so many beautiful flowers there, and she immediately goes there. The Bumblebee Queen watches them and then begins to cough violently, as if she has some kind of illness. Hanny asks her if it's an old wound, to which she replies that she's gotten used to it. She also expresses hope that Vivian will be able to become a worthy heir before she becomes completely weakened. Meanwhile, we are transported to the meeting room, where the elders discuss the actions of the Mud Wasp clan and hand down punishment. The Mud Wasp speaks of having succumbed to greed, asks for forgiveness, and expresses hope for mercy. However, she is informed that from this day on, the tribe of Mud Wasps is forever banished from the Sky Island. The Mud Wasp asks why the punishment is so severe since she only stole one drone. However, they all tell her in one voice that she has kidnapped the future third king of the Heavenly Island. The Mud Wasp can't believe what's happening and says that she simply didn't know that this was the future king. However, after thinking for a moment, she states that there must be a mistake here, since a male cannot become king. Meanwhile, Cedric continues to show Vivian flowers and says that it is incredibly beautiful here. Vivi tries to understand if he really wants to confess his feelings to her after taking her to a secluded place. Cedric shows her a red flower and tells her that it is very tasty so she can try it. Vivian looks at him with slight irritation and mentally assumes that he is just playing hard to get. Cedric tries to understand why she looks angry and muses that children are too difficult to deal with. They decide to play a little, while thinking about each other that each of them is still a child with whom they need to play children's games. Meanwhile, the dung beetle and the flower mantis arrive at the palace entrance and ask the guards to deliver a message. Cedric says that it is Little Moth and his other friends, and Vivi asks how he knows them. Cedric says that they are his friends and asks permission to leave for a moment to talk to them. Vivi allows him to do so, and he immediately flies off to communicate with his comrades in arms. Vivi notes that leaving a royal heir like her for some commoners is a very strange decision. After a while, the rest of the bees fly away, and Hanny is left alone with Lola thinking about something. Cedric comes to his mother, the queen, and addresses her by her title to get her attention. He says that he came to say goodbye to her in order to go on a new mission. Hanny turns around in surprise and asks him what this all means, after which her face becomes worried. She asks him what happened to him and why he addresses her so formally and talks about leaving here. Cedric talks about wanting to start his own territory, and she asks if he really means it. She picks him up and he tells her that this is a decision he made after today. Hanny hugs him and tells him that Cedric always notices other people's pain, and she loves him very much for it. She also states that she knows he always wanted to help his friends, so he doesn't belong here. She says that he is ready to go his own way, and then asks him to come back when he misses her. The dung beetle and flower mantis land next to him to express their intention to protect their king. They say that they came here to help him get to his own territory. Hanny blesses him for his further journey and tells him to take care of himself and not expose himself to unnecessary danger. Cedric says goodbye to her and says that he will visit her quite often because he loves her very much. After a while, they carefully rise into the air and fly off to make their own way. Meanwhile, Hanny turns to Lola and tells her that for the first time she truly feels what it means to be a parent. After this, she turns around and asks her if she can ask her for a favor, and Lola immediately agrees. Meanwhile, the Bumblebee Queen asks Vivi why she is so thoughtful, and she immediately denies it. She thinks about Cedric and thinks that this guy is too fond of bragging with or without reason. The thing is, she was following him and found out that Cedric said that the bees agreed to give him the underground mine. He also said that the area was too barren and unsuitable, so a new city needed to be built outside of it. The dung beetle suggests that the habitat of the dragon monsters lies outside the underground mine. Cedric says that over the past month he has fought countless battles with bone and dragon monsters. Vivi watched his actions closely and noted that he was behaving in a manner completely inappropriate for his age. She muses that Cedric is just a child, but speaks like a mature man, and therefore could end up in the jaws of a bone dragon. Meanwhile, we find ourselves in an aphid village that is under attack by a giant dragon monster. The giant monster tries to crush them, but misses a little. But in this situation, it is not critical. This creature is so large that it is almost impossible to hide from it. However, this time the fate of this settlement may not be so grim, as help is already on its way. Cedric rushes forward with his warriors and says that he will not allow his people to be harmed. He decides to use star power to blind his opponents and prevent them from reacting. Together they make a heroic landing, raising giant clouds of smoke and blocking visibility. Cedric addresses the dragon monsters and tells them that their opponents have just arrived to fight. He also says that they should let these insects go, and if they have the courage, they will attack them. The dragons instantly blur the air and prepare to meet these daring opponents in seconds. The dung beetle prepares to take an aerial attack and goes into a defensive stance, increasing its strength. The dragon beast crashes into him, but he manages to stay on his feet and gradually stop it. After some time, he manages to completely stabilize, and now the time comes for a powerful counterattack. Grabbing the dragon beast by the beak, he swings it like a club and knocks down another opponent. The flower mantis immediately dives into the air and performs a strike to tear these enemies apart. She has also significantly increased her level recently and now has real fighting skills. Small aphids try to escape from a falling dinosaur corpse, which could fall on them and kill them. The flower mantis says that things are bad and that we need to take advantage of her incredible speed. Cedric reassures her that everything is okay, then uses his armor to enter strength mode. After that, he uses the power of spatial control to get them out of this situation in time. After a few moments, he switches places with them, putting himself at risk, but he has already calculated this risk. His armor transforms into dung beetle mode, and his strength is now increased several hundredfold. It blocks the monster's heavy bulk, which would otherwise leave no trace of it. Having stopped it completely, he turns to his little relatives and asks if everything is okay with them. The aphids thank him and joyfully say that they are very grateful to the king of insects, who was able to help them out. After some time, Cedric decides to get to know the rest of the settlement, which had been hidden all this time. They ask him if the Lord Insect King has come to reclaim the lost territory. Cedric says that he came to evacuate them from this dangerous place to safer conditions. He also adds that he came here to open a safe living area for everyone and make it a paradise. After some time, they are transported to a temporary command post in an underground mine to plan their steps. Cedric looks at the maps and says that in one of the places the landscape is flat, there is a lot of food, and there is also a lake. He also says that the area around the lake is surrounded by dense forest, and traces of dragon activity have been seen there. The dung beetle says that if it comes to exploring the territory, then they can turn to one tribe. Cedric asks him what it means, and Flower Mantis replies that he will find out when the time comes. After some time, Cedric asks his comrade why they came to the place where the dragon excrement is located. The dung beetle says that this is a necessary condition, since that tribe loves such things. We are talking about giant flies that often parasitize on decomposing remains and leave their larvae there. They land on the excrement and begin the process of eating the useful remains of food. Cedric turns away from this sight, realizing that he is still too weak to witness such a thing. The king of the flies notices the dung beetle and asks if he needs anything, to which he states that he has a request. A fly approaches the protagonist and says that the insect king must be an impressive figure to have a seal. After this, she licks her hands to make them cleaner and extends them in greeting. Cedric holds out a trembling paw, feeling like he has to hold back or he'll throw up. The fly shakes his paw, saying that it is a great honor for her to work with Mr. Hornet. He also claims that by tasting someone's feces, he can determine their gender, age, strength, and offspring. Cedric shares his plans to take over the Eastern Lake territory, adding that they need a good scout. The king of the flies says it will be as easy as pie and promises to handle it quite quickly. He turns to his minions and tells them to follow him and scout out the dragon monsters. After this, they all fly off in different directions to cover as much territory as possible. Cedric immediately heads to a small pond to wash his hands after handling the fly. This procedure takes several minutes, as he wants his hands to be perfectly clean. After sniffing, he unfortunately realizes that the smell still remains and has not completely disappeared. Mau Mau and Stinkbug greet him and say that they heard that he is going to found a settlement. They talk about why they came to his aid, and Cedric happily turns towards them. They show him the beasts and insects that have formed a team of nearly 1,000 fighters to fight the dragons. Cedric looks closely at the number of people who want to participate and realizes that he really does have a whole army of supporters. Even the ladybugs say they want to fight the dragon monsters with him. Approaching the termite, he discovers that he has kitchen utensils in his hands, which he is ready to fight with. Cedric states that this is a categorical error, as this team is cannon fodder without organization and skills. Just when he is starting to despair a little, he hears the familiar voices of his old friends who have arrived here. Cedric greets Lola, Man, and Min, who have arrived here quite suddenly. Coming closer to them, he asks them why they are here and whether they are supposed to guard the queen. Lola states that they are here on the orders of the queen, who has asked them to protect him at all costs. They say with a smile that the 5th detachment of the Wasp tribe, consisting of 300 warriors, has arrived to help him. Smiles begin to shine on their faces, after which they declare that they are ready to fight by his side and help him. After some time, the dung beetle decides to organize training for the other insects to increase their strength. He gives them special ropes so that they can try to tie him up and restrict his movement, giving it their all. They have varying success in this, since the strength of this beetle is too high and is on a different level. He throws away some of the insects, saying that it is too weak and they need to try much harder. The exhausted insects fall to the ground and realize that they need to rest a little before the next round. The dung beetle states that the dragon beast's power is not limited by his own, so they must continue. Cedric, meanwhile, watches the micro-conflict between the praying mantis and the hornet, realizing that the women are angry. It's scary. In the temporary meeting room of the underground mine, Flies talk about how many dragon monsters live in the East Lake area. He adds that the Tyrannosaurus warlord leader is a 3-star dragon monster that must be destroyed. Cedric says that this is the end of the explanation of the situation, and that it is necessary to announce the plan for fighting these creatures. He states that the first step is to study the daily routes of the Tyrannosaurus tribe. He decides that a suitable place for an ambush needs to be found, and the insect fighters from the mine will lie in wait on both sides. He also suggests using ropes to hold back the star dragon beasts at the end of the column. This is necessary in order to divide the group of these monsters into parts and make them more vulnerable. This was done in order to create a distraction so that the tyrannosaurs would not suspect anything. They also decide to use the experience they gained during training to use the lasso. According to this plan, this should significantly reduce the mobility of all monsters that do not yet understand what is happening. Immediately after this, the stronger hornets must destroy these creatures one by one without giving them time to replenish their strength. They take advantage of their numerical advantage to quickly finish off all the 1-star beasts. The leader of the T-Rex tribe turns around to find out what's going on. However, his attention is almost immediately drawn to a bright flash that is rapidly approaching him. The 3-star leader is an important target, so Lola and Dung Beetle, who are the strongest, are sent to eliminate him. The Tyrannosaurus leader rushes forward, declaring that he will destroy the pair of presumptuous insects. Cedric, along with the flower mantis, quickly deals with all the enemies that come his way. However, after completing the strikes, they discover that the target Cedric struck is still standing on the ground. The flower mantis tells him that it is too early to draw conclusions, since he relies on his own strength. Cedric reflects on how his skill allows him to acquire the powers of his comrades, but does not fully unlock them. His assistants tell him that all the 1-stars have already been successfully defeated and praise his brilliant plan. Meanwhile, the dung beetle continues to fight off its powerful opponent, giving it its all. The big Tyrannosaurus tells him that he is quite strong since he can withstand his blows. He also opens his mouth to prepare a powerful attack using his scream. The cry is so loud that it throws the beetle back, and its opponent accuses it of being slow. Immediately after this, Lola intervenes in the matter, having much greater mobility, allowing her to maneuver. He claims that the Hornet tribe is not so different as the rumors say, which have clearly been exaggerated. He adds that according to these rumors, the Hornet tribe was once considered invincible, and each of its warriors was incredibly strong. While fighting her, he says that bugs like her, with 2 stars, are not even worthy of entering the battlefield. Lola, realizing that the enemy is indeed very strong, decides that she will have to put in a lot of effort. The T-Rex tackles her to the ground and asks if she's out of star power. The dung beetle lunges forward and knocks him down with heavy blows that stun him for a while. The Tyrannosaurus angrily calls him a pathetic insect creature that he will crush right now. However, other insects immediately come to his aid, declaring that they will destroy this dinosaur. The Tyrannosaurus waves its giant tail, claiming that they are just a bunch of small fry. He calls them unworthy fighters and throws them back with one powerful, impossible-to-dodge lunge. The bees jump aside along with the other insects who wanted to help the beetle. Dung Beetle and Lola tell Cedric that he is still not strong enough to fight such enemies. The Tyrannosaurus says he'll deal with those two, and then he'll happily take on this pathetic boy. Cedric says that if this continues, they will definitely lose because they cannot defeat him. He muses that Dung Beetle is a tank warrior and Lola is a balance type, but they lack coordination. He thinks that if he adds Flower Mantis, as well as Ming and Man, the situation will improve. He says he now knows how to defeat this 3-star T-Rex. He adds that they need to collaborate, relying on their strengths, to make everything much easier. The dung beetle looks at him in surprise and asks what exactly he means by this plan. Cedric says that each of them has their own outstanding abilities that need to be combined with others. He goes into enhanced strength mode and declares that together they will become an invincible force that cannot be stopped. The first thing he does is order the dung beetle to attack the dragon to stop it for a while. The dung beetle complies with his demand and blocks the oncoming blow with incredible ease. Tyrannosaurus says that whatever tricks they may have planned will be useless in the face of his power. The dung beetle objects to him, saying that if you don't try anything, then nothing will work. Cedric asks Lola to come to his aid to restrain the T-Rex's movements. The rest are ordered to use their speed advantages to attack vital points. The Tyrannosaurus says that if they dare to encroach on his territory, they will be crushed. Lola lowers herself down and addresses the T-Rex, saying that his opponent is ready. She prepares a powerful attack to deliver at the perfect moment while the T-Rex is distracted. She succeeds in this, causing the monster to retreat back, feeling the open wounds. Other bees use their skills to gradually build up this advantage. Each of them is doing their best to inflict as much damage as possible on this creature. Man and Lola say their coordinated attack is working, even though he's still standing. Meanwhile, the Tyrannosaurus demands that they approach one by one, since it will be easier for him to destroy them. He muses that their onslaught is too fast, so he won't be able to fight them all at once. The flower mantis suddenly appears next to him and asks what he is up to. Before he can react, she delivers a sharp blow and jumps to the side. She notes that this monster has quite strong armor, while the dinosaur curses these insects. He attacks her, saying that he will crush her first, since she is the most annoying. Cedric switches places with her and goes into maximum defense mode to withstand the blow. Tyrannosaurus makes every effort to destroy its target, and it does not care who is in front of it. Flower Mantis asks Cedric how he feels, and he replies that he is fine. Meanwhile, the Tyrannosaurus activates its magical skills and releases fireballs. Cedric addresses Min, telling her to be careful and do everything she can to survive. It quickly becomes clear that these fireballs are too fast for her to jump away. Cedric abruptly switches places with her and turns on maximum protection mode again, promising that he will cover her. There is a huge explosion and they ask him. He replies that he will explain everything later, hoping that no one was hurt. Cedric gives them another approving gesture and says that it's just a couple of little things if he's okay. Man asks him for help, saying that she is about to be crushed, and he uses his spatial control skill again. Each such attempt to save a comrade results in very significant damage to him. He asks her why she asked for help, since she clearly dodged this attack in advance. Man responds by saying that she just wants to feel what it's like to be under the protection of her king. Cedric reflects that these are just temporary difficulties and that he needs to remain calm. The Tyrannosaurus turns around and tries to run away, saying that this monster is too thick-skinned. The flower mantis immediately blocks his path, telling him that he shouldn't even think about escaping, because his fate is sealed. The Tyrannosaurus is unable to stay on its feet and falls to the ground, completely losing its combat capability for a short time. He begs for mercy, saying that he no longer needs the territory and they should just let him go, and he promises not to come back. Hornet rushes forward, saying that dragon monsters have a strong sense of revenge, so he will definitely return. Tyrannosaurus says that if his fellow tribesmen found out what they had done, their clan would be destroyed. The dung beetle, meanwhile, lifts it off the ground to provide a more comfortable position for striking. Lola, along with the other hornets, delivers a powerful blow directly to his unprotected abdomen. After a while, he stops moving altogether and falls to the ground, breathing his last breath. The hornets say they were incredibly successful in winning this difficult battle. Lola reflects on how defeating a group of 3-star dragon beasts, even with direct damage, is an incredible victory. She realizes that such great insight and adaptability truly signal that Cedric is unique. Meanwhile, the protagonist boasts of his powers, saying that it was as easy as pie and within the calculation. Man begins to praise him, saying that he easily dealt with the 3-star dragon beasts. Cedric ignores her and runs away, after which she apologizes, saying that she knows perfectly well that she was wrong. After some time, they move to the eastern lake, where other insects arrive and look around. Cedric tells them that from this day on, this place will be their new home, which they will protect. He also says that this is the first piece of insect territory outside the Sky Island, and history will remember them. He emphasizes that everyone can choose a plot of land here and build a new house, and now it will become a common paradise. The insects run away from him and say that if they hesitate, the good places will be taken away immediately. Cedric asks them to wait as he has not finished his speech, but they state that they have already understood everything they need to. Only the moths remain on the spot, looking to see if everything is all right with their leader, but he has lost consciousness. At that moment, he is transported to the nest of the Star Dragon clan and decides to use his powers to explore it. He climbs onto the giant dining table and takes a basket with him to stock up on supplies. This table is really huge. It has a lot of different fruits on it that you can eat. Ever since he started eating the food of the Bound Dragon clan, his physical performance has been constantly improving. Another foray ends with a good harvest, which he will absorb for some time. As he slowly descends, he says that this is another day to enjoy the gifts of nature. During these days, he explored almost the entire territory while the clans of the Bound Dragon were sleeping and discovered a real treasure. Among other junk, he found a lot of electronics that were still in working order. He happily says that the motherboard he found can be used to make a washing machine. However, his usual meal is suddenly interrupted by a strange voice that attracts his attention. He approaches a small hole and sees that there is someone below, and tries to understand who this strange person is. That person, of course, is Princess Vivian, who survived the disaster and is now in captivity. She looks up in surprise and hears a human voice that she has never heard in this place. Vivian states her name and says that she is from the Galactic Empire and is an honorary princess. She also says that as the princess of the Empire, she orders her immediate rescue for a reward. Cedric looks at her carefully and shows with his whole appearance that such an idea seems very stupid to him. Turning around, he reflects on the fact that she had just been crying. But as soon as she saw him, she immediately changed her tone. After that, he takes out his book, which said that he should marry one woman, have 10 children, and make 100 friends. He says that the 100 friends have already been completed, and he has also already built a big house, so there are still a few things left. He says with a smile that he simply did not expect that in the insect world he would achieve goals that turned out to be out of his reach. However, from his point of view, the remaining 2 tasks are difficult, since he cannot marry an insect. His subconscious tells him that there is already a suitable woman here, and he immediately understands that we are talking about a princess. Cedric says that he kindly saved her once already, and she turned her back and abandoned him without even looking back. Cedric also says that this princess has a lifespan of thousands of years, while he will only live for a few decades. The subconscious is telling her that she had no choice, and that is the only reason she left him, so there is no need to be so categorical. She notes that there are only 2 people in this dragon lair, and if he does not save her, terrible things will happen to her. His subconscious asks him why he still doubts and orders him to save her immediately before it's too late. Cedric agrees with the voice of reason, after which he reaches the place where the princess is imprisoned and throws her a rope. He encourages her to grab it quickly and promises to pull her out while she tries to figure out who it is. As she climbs the rope, she asks him for forgiveness and says that she was ignorant and said too much. Cedric says that there is no need for further words and asks her to simply grab his hand. Vivian looks at him with a smile and says that he is really very good, after which she understands who is in front of her. She jumps back in fear and asks him how a ghost could have ended up here. Cedric realizes that if he doesn't save her now, she will simply fall down and get seriously injured. He catches her mid-flight, jumping down, and advises her to hold on as tightly as possible. They hang from a rope that is somehow miraculously firmly tied to small rocks above. Lifting her up, he says that the dragon beast is resting, so there is no point in attracting its attention. Cedric treats her to food, and she is surprised that he was able to survive, emphasizing that this brings her great relief. Cedric declares that not only is he alive, but he has experienced something incredible, and then hands her some water. Vivian happily accepts this gift and says that she is very grateful to him for it. After this, she almost instantly drains the flask of water, restoring her strength. Cedric asks her how these dragon beasts kept her in the lair and why they needed her. Vivian claims that it is related to royal secrets, so she will hardly be able to talk about it. Cedric comments that she must still be hungry and promises to bring her dessert. Vivian is amazed that he encountered something so dangerous, but he does not hold a grudge against her and even saved her. After a while, she attracts his attention and begins to carefully remove the top part of her clothing. Cedric closes his eyes in embarrassment and asks her what she is doing. She reassures him and says that she just wants to show him something, and Cedric hopes that things don't go too fast. She points to her neck and tells him that she has a royal seal in the area of her collarbone. She claims that members of the royal family with such a seal have every right to inherit the empire. Cedric looks at the seal in surprise and realizes that it is clearly not what he initially assumed. He also reflects that he had no idea that humans could also have a royal seal. Vivian states that this seal attracts powerful monsters, and eating it greatly increases their strength. She also says that she is ready to do anything to make him forgive her for what she did. Cedric stops her and says that he understands everything perfectly and will take this into account in the future. After this, he asks the question whether she is really capable of doing anything for him. Vivian reflects that as long as he can get her out of here alive, any wish he has becomes law for her. Cedric says that he understands and will do everything possible to protect her in this dangerous place. Afterwards, he hands her the dessert, telling her that it is his proud creation, and she is surprised that it is shaved ice. Vivian asks him where he got it from, and Cedric says that he built a refrigerator out of microchips. He claims that there is a fur cemetery nearby, and he often goes there for spare parts for household appliances. Vivian immediately feels her eyes light up with enthusiasm and says that they need to go there. Cedric takes her there and declares that this is the very place where the trophies from the war with the dragons are collected. Vivian looks closely at these mechs and says that each of them is at least at level 5. She notes that if you assemble one mech from them, you can try to escape from here and repair it. She proudly invites the protagonist to use these parts to create new mechanisms. Cedric leaves, thinking that this is a stupid idea since each of these parts weighs 1,000 kilograms. After a while, he freezes in place and notes that he can use the help of real monsters. Sometime later, he returns to his bee-body and discovers that he has several fractures. With the help of a flash of strange energy, he suddenly switches places with him and ends up in this world with a human body. He is happy that everything worked out for him, but he discovers that there was a misunderstanding during the transfer. At first, he realizes that his hypothesis has been confirmed and 2 bodies can indeed change places. However, now he feels as if he has entered the land of giants, realizing that his hornet body has always been very large. To begin with, he decides to take a good look around in order to figure out how he needs to act. He slowly gets to his feet, looks around, trying to figure out what to do, when suddenly a small moth enters the room. Cedric looks at it carefully, after which he realizes that now this moth seems much larger to him. A strange tension arises between them, and he wonders why the little butterfly doesn't recognize him. A few moments later, he runs up to his sister and says that he found some strange creature. Sienna says that there is no time for this now, and the moth states that Cedric is not in the room and he only found this creature there. Cedric shouts loudly that he is the man they are looking for, but they do not listen to him. Meanwhile, they move to the edge of the eastern lake, where several other insects arrive. They are asked what they are doing here, and they declare that they have come to see the new king. They are told that he has been seriously injured, and these insects ask them how they allowed this to happen. The dung beetle declares that if they came here only to mock, then they have no place on this earth. The colored mosquito says that if they could not protect the king, then they themselves can take care of him. His comrade, the armored elephant, says that they are much more experienced fighters, and with them, Cedric will be safe. Another monster named Grenwing states that if they want to stop them, then perhaps they will have to fight them. The dung beetle and the flower mantis realize that they need to prepare for battle in order to survive. Grenwing finds himself behind his rival almost instantly thanks to his incredible speed. Grenwing immediately tries to use the skill of magical wings in order to greatly strengthen himself and launch an attack. They begin to whirl in a battle dance, and neither of them can gain the upper hand due to their equal strength skills. Meanwhile, the armored elephant targets the dung beetle, which seems like a convenient target. In order to deliver a powerful blow, he decides to use his stinger built into his head, like a powerful drill. The dung beetle quickly grabs him by this sting and tells him that there is no point in this and this fight will be stupid. Putting it aside, he says that the difference between them is quite obvious, so there is nothing to talk about. However, after this he looks at his paw and realizes that it has received some small scratches and he has strength. After a few more moments, he sees how pieces of his blood gradually fly into the air and rush to the side. The colored mosquito tries to drink some of this blood in order to become even stronger and charge up before the fight. She notes that this blood tastes incredibly disgusting, and she has never tasted anything worse in her life. Spitting out a small portion, she says that the dragon monster's blood was much tastier. Meanwhile, the insects continue to watch them and say that this fight has already dragged on. Min Min, Man Man, and Lola come to the conclusion that these newcomers are doing well, but they lack coordination. Meanwhile, Little Moth asks Cedric if it is really him, and he confirms it. He asks him why he looks so strange, and Cedric says that it is very difficult to explain. He reflects on how he can't just say that this is his true form, as that will raise a lot of questions. Meanwhile, the newbies continue to fight, and Little Moth wonders what is going on here. Mao Mao claims that some insect warriors came for Cedric, but the dung beetle blocked their way and a fight broke out. Cedric wonders if these wandering warriors have come here to find him. He understands that if things continue like this, there will be a problem, so they need to be stopped immediately. The little butterfly looks down at Cedric and finds that he has suddenly decided to take a little nap. Cedric, in his hornet form, gradually comes to his senses in a special pool that helps him recover from battles with monsters. Once he got to shore, he said it was a really effective strategy, as he recovered in such a short time. Smiling, he says that his life energy has also been restored and it is time to return. Appearing in a new space, he orders these newcomers to stop immediately before it is too late. He says that as the king of insects, he orders them to immediately stop this senseless fight. The colored mosquito says that everything looks exactly as it was said out loud. They immediately bend their knees, come closer to him, and say that they greet their king. Cedric asks them what they are doing here, and they tell him that they heard of his heroic exploits and wanted to join. The colorful mosquito reveals that Cedric has abandoned his noble status and become the leader of the lower classes of insects. Cedric asks them how they knew this, and they show him a leaflet that says it all. Cedric reads the leaflet and realizes that it is a special leaflet for recruiting new allies to wage war. Cedric asks Mao Mao and Stinkbug if they know who could have made such flyers and posted them everywhere. Mao Mao says that it must be some righteous person who admires him. After some time, the insects come up to them and say that they have hung up all the leaflets and ask where to put the statue. Stinkbug and Mao Mao say that they should continue printing and take this statue to the central square. Cedric asks what the story is with the leaflets and the statue, and they say they'll explain it later. Immediately after this, they turn around and try to run away, saying that they will explain everything later. Cedric looks at them in surprise and realizes that sometimes the activities of his subordinates raise questions in his mind. For a while, he goes back to the distant past, when the flower mantis lost his parents. She begins to cry very loudly, realizing that she will never be able to make up for this loss. A dung beetle breaks into her house and says that, thank God, there are survivors here, after which she asks him for help. The dung beetle says that her parents can no longer be saved, but it is dangerous here, so they need to leave immediately. After this, he takes her by the hand and leads her to a safe place, despite the fact that she says that she wants to stay there. The dung beetle quickly wakes up, realizing that this was a rather unpleasant nightmare that she had already seen many times. Looking around, she notes that this dream continues to recur, despite the fact that her life has already improved. Stepping out of her little house, she sees that this place has turned into a paradise and it is peaceful here. She also discovers that many people here live in peace and tranquility, with only minor conflicts occasionally arising. She decides to inspect other parts of their new kingdom and discovers the arrival of new insects. She looks at them carefully and realizes that this is an audience that Cedric is receiving. The insects say they are refugees from the borderlands and have come here to swear allegiance to the new king. Cedric says that if they choose him as their patron, he will provide them with a good life. He also says that recently there has been an increasing number of refugees and insects seeking asylum. The dung beetle says that it is quite possible that another battle took place on the front lines. Lola states that according to the treaty made by the 5 insect kings, every 5 years they gather an army to fight. Cedric asks them if there are 5 other insect kings besides him, and they confirm that there are. Lola says that the hornets guard the eastern regions along with the 3 rulers of the bees, which include Hanny and the bumblebee queen. She adds that the northern region is guarded by the king stag beetle and the king rhinoceros beetle. She also says that the western plains are guarded exclusively by the king of slimes, who is considered the strongest. Cedric says that these insect rulers are incredibly powerful, but he doesn't understand why they are losing ground. The flower mantis comes closer to him and says that he can explain the answer to this question to him. She tells that the insect rulers are confronted by 4 dragon generals who are endowed with terrifying power. They note that their king has discovered other hunting grounds and gone off to plunder them, meaning there are even more horrors in the world. They note that she will soon reach 2 stars and join them on the front lines, but Dung Beetle advises her to reconsider. Cedric proudly says that he will work hard, and then, if they become stronger, they can fight together. Lola says that if he continues to get stronger, they will increase the intensity of their training starting tomorrow. Cedric asks if there is a faster way to get stronger without such grueling training. Lola states that a faster way to become stronger is to consume the meat of high-level dragon beasts. She notes that the meat of 3-star and 1-star dragons should provide a good boost in strength. In his human body, Cedric realizes that he has enough materials and energy to create mechs. His main problem was that he only repaired them and never built them from scratch because he didn't understand the design. After a while, he hears Vivian's frightened cry and asks what happened. Running out of the cave, he sees her fall to the ground and scream the name of the Star Dragon King. She asks why the Star Dragon King is here, and Cedric guesses that she is talking about that monster. Looking at it, he immediately calms down and understands that there is no reason to worry. He says that this dragon has been sleeping for a month and his wounds still haven't healed. Cedric realizes that allowing the Star Dragon King to recover will become a serious problem. After thinking for a moment, he realizes that this is high-level dragon meat that is ready to eat. Cedric immediately reassures his girlfriend, saying that he will definitely not let him recover before they leave here. After some time, the blind turtle returns here to bring new food for the pool. The turtle says that the wound on her leg should be almost healed, but she discovers that her leg is missing. Looking into the pot, the turtle says that the dosage of the medicine was correct, but for some reason there is no result. The turtle comes to the conclusion that the dosage will have to be increased to make the treatment go faster. Cedric happily says that he was actually able to cut off a piece of the Star Dragon King's flesh. After cooking it over the fire for a while, he wonders how many stars this Dragon King has and how dangerous he is. After that, he puts the meat in his mouth and says that it doesn't matter, because becoming stronger is the priority. As soon as the meat begins to digest, he feels an incredible strength spreading throughout his body. The room he is in begins to glow brightly and attracts the attention of other insects. They are transported to the eastern part of the Sky Island, where a huge number of dragons pass. The insects are trying to convey the message that the first line of defense in the canyon has completely fallen. The Bumblebee tribe's army defending the canyon suffers a crushing defeat while defending their homeland. They return to the East Lake residential area again, where the moths try to test their commander. He looks at him in surprise and asks what is happening, noting the strange changes in his aura. Cedric clears his throat and says that he feels fine and there is nothing to worry about. He apologizes for the mess he made and realizes that he has grown up a little more. They tell him that he has become significantly higher, and he assumes that he has simply increased his level. They ask him how he managed to make so much progress in just 1 month, and he replies that it's all training. After some time, a wounded fighter of the Bumblebee tribe is brought here, who asks for an audience with the queen. Lola asks her where she got such a serious wound, realizing that it is definitely something serious. The warrior says that one of the 4 dragon generals led the army in a surprise attack on the canyon. Lola is the worst at taking this information and understands that it fundamentally changes all their plans for counteraction. Lola says that she will urgently send a message to the queen and asks the others to treat her. Man is ordered to lead the local residents and prepare them for evacuation at any time. The dung beetle says that this canyon is known as a stronghold for insects, but he easily crosses it. Cedric quickly goes outside and declares that he is against the evacuation of the local population. They are surprised that he leveled up, and Cedric says that they shouldn't give up the land they fought for. He notes that this will put them back in the same position they started from, and he must definitely protect them. Lola says that even if they are not the Dragon Lord's main target, these dragons will mercilessly exterminate everyone. Mao Mao and Stinkbug say that they have already gotten used to it and will return there as soon as the dragon army leaves. Cedric refuses again and says that he will not allow the dragon troops to so unceremoniously disturb their peace and destroy their homes. After a short pause, he says that such things simply cannot be tolerated if they want to live a normal life. Lola asks him to stop being willful since the regular army of dragons are very serious opponents. Cedric says that he understands this perfectly well, but they must be the ones to leave this earth. He turns to his comrades and orders them to gather all the animals and insects that are ready to fight. Cedric asks them if they want to know how to level up 2 levels in a month. He invites them to follow him if they want to know the answer to this question. He sets up a quick field kitchen, adding Dragon King meat to make them stronger. He lightly places a spoonful into each of their bowls, saying that this should help them become much stronger. Lola, Min, and Man wonder why he made so much broth. Lola says that the insects and animals that live here are still no match for the dragons. She thinks and tries to stop him from doing something stupid. However, after she tastes this meat, she feels herself becoming much stronger, and this changes everything. Cedric stands before a gathering of his subjects and tells them that a group of dragons is about to invade their lands. He also adds that he is sure that they are all tired of this nomadic life that has no end. He also states that they are tired of their fellow tribesmen being exterminated by these damn dragon monsters. He adds that their ancestors rest beneath this earth, and they are the true owners of this place and will not give it to anyone. The colorful mosquito suggests that the rumors were true. This is indeed a powerful drone king, worthy of their loyalty. Cedric promises everyone that he will drive all these dragon monsters away from here and they will never come back. He calls upon all who are willing to follow him to drink this broth and go into battle together. The insects are delighted by such a stunning speech and comply with his demands, draining the cups to the bottom in one gulp. Stinkbug says that he has become very hot, and Mao Mao says that it is not even spring yet, so he can be patient. Stinkbug states that he has begun to feel incredible strength and has now acquired several new abilities. Other insects also level up, gaining star power and incredible strength. The dung beetle and the flower mantis realize that this broth contains a huge amount of incredible power. Lola realizes that this meat belongs to at least a 6-star dragon, and she doesn't understand where he got it from. All combat insects are raised one level and become a much more formidable fighting force. They quickly clench their fists, saying that they are ready to give their lives for the victory over the dragon monsters. After this, they gather in friendly ranks and move forward in an organized manner to give battle to the villains. Cedric rushes forward with them, thus organizing a giant flock of migratory insects. Almost all insects have wings, which gives them an incredible advantage when attacking ground dragons. The only ones left at home are the moths and Mao Mao, who, unfortunately, cannot fly, and the soup still doesn't help them much. She sadly says that for now, this is an unattainable dream for her, but one day she will definitely rise to a new level. Cedric asks if he has any battle plan that needs to be followed to win. Cedric studies the map of the area and says that they are approaching the only narrow passage in the area. He adds that this fork in the river can restrict the movement of giant dragons, so we need to take advantage of it. They ask him why he is so gloomy, and he replies that he is not worried about the current combat power. He comments that they are moving too slowly and asks if they can speed up, but Lola replies that it is impossible. She reminds them that if they move faster, they will simply arrive at the battle already tired, and this cannot be allowed. Cedric says that he cannot stand by and watch their kin being killed, and asks the newcomers what they can do. After some time, they are transported to a canyon village, which is under attack by a huge number of dragons. The unfortunate residents turn to the leader of the dragon gang and ask for mercy in exchange for their service. He swears that he will be the most faithful slave and will never let him down if he leaves his family alive. The dragon says that today he is in a good mood, so he will give him a chance to become a slave, but will leave only one alive. He asks the question of whom he should eat, offering a choice between a small child or the insect's wife. He turns to the head of the family and invites him to decide for himself who he wants to leave. And having waited for an answer, he says that today he is not very hungry, so he will eat this little thing with great pleasure. Cedric accelerates repeatedly to break through and head to this village to save everyone. He borrowed Grenwing's sky speed skill, which allows him to break the speed of sound. Having reached the right place, he decides to take advantage of the mode change and increases his durability to the maximum. He gains enough speed to become like a projectile and delivers a powerful blow to the dragon's face. This dragon receives such powerful kinetic energy that it is thrown to the side and loses its balance. The dragons help him up, and the leader says what a stupid beetle dared to do this. Cedric looks at the destroyed village and says that these insects are trying their best to survive. He turns around and asks them why they should just let them die here on this earth. They say that in front of them there is only a 2-star beetle which does not pose any threat. Cedric says that he did not come here alone and points to the sky where many fighters are shining. The dragon gang looks up and tries to figure out what this means and why they hear such a loud noise. From the outside, it seems to them that meteorites are falling on them, but this is not what they initially thought. A few moments later, they realize that these are not meteorites, but a giant army of insects rushing into battle. The dragon leader wonders where this army came from, as they had not received any information about it. However, he understands that no matter the situation, they will kill them all and return for the reward. He orders his comrades to rush into battle and leave no insect in their path. The dragons rush forward, saying that they will not let their commander down and will bring him many trophies. The insects outnumber their opponents by more than 5 times, so the outcome of this battle is already a foregone conclusion. Lola orders the protagonist to stop being so reckless and find a safe place to hide. Cedric says that he is no longer the coward he used to be and will fight alongside everyone else. Lola asks him to be more careful, but he is already taking off, using his wings and new powers. Lola says that this boy is heading straight for the enemy leader, so the king needs to be protected. However, several more dragons immediately appear on their path, realizing that they are facing powerful opponents. They declare that they will now show them how the provocation of the great army of dragons ends. Lola asks irritably why these opponents appeared in front of them right now. Cedric continues to fly from enemy to enemy, quickly destroying them with his increased power. However, he still has a lot of work to do to kill all the enemies in his line of sight. Cedric notes that combining the abilities of two subordinates produces a much greater result than simply adding them together. He decides to call the new skill Harvest Mode, realizing that it will be very useful to him in the future. Suddenly, another dragon appears behind him, happily saying that he has found their main producer. He notes that this pathetic hornet is probably the source of this insect army's star power. Taking proper aim at him, he decides to use the Heavenly Thunderstrike skill to stun him and knock him down to the ground. He says that once he kills him, the army of insects will simply disintegrate into small pieces. This dragon leader's level is quite high, so you will have to take him into account and use your maximum strength. Cedric notes that this dragon can actually shoot lightning, and he clearly underestimated its fighting abilities. Cedric also says that Lola was right, and this fighting squad is indeed much stronger than the previous one. The Dragon Gang leader says that the star power inventory level is a sign of reaching the 4th rank. He continues to try to knock him down with lightning strikes, but Cedric constantly dodges them. He notes his agility, after which he says that he will now test his new abilities on him. The other dragons scatter as their leader charges up a powerful lightning attack. Some say there's nothing to fear here, as the boss's Thunder Spear can hit its target with incredible accuracy. His friend is talking about just going out and hunting other bugs, when suddenly his aura starts to glow. Cedric uses the switch to get out of the way of a powerful blow and expose his opponent. The dragon leader looks in surprise at his ally, who was brutally destroyed by his own attack. Meanwhile, the dung beetle is fighting another opponent, who is quite an experienced fighter. The other hornets try to help him as much as possible to rid him of the rest of his enemies. His opponent smiles and says that all attempts are useless because his skin is incredibly strong. The dung beetle decides to use the gigantization skill to further increase its strength. Immediately after this, he rushes forward to break the enemy's resistance and drive him into the ground. The dragon doesn't have time to react and receives even more blows, crashing into a stone block. The dung beetle prepares to deliver a powerful finishing blow, and the dragon realizes that it needs to change tactics. He decides to use his molting skill to shed his skin and shrink in size for a short time. He immediately runs away, saying that he is not such a simple opponent that he can be defeated so easily. He notes that this opponent's physical strength is too great, so he cannot fight him head-on. That's why he decides to resort to even more tricks and begins digging underground tunnels. The dung beetle watches in surprise and wonders if he's going to use the escape underground. The dung beetle approaches the giant pit and wonders where its opponent has gone. This dragon cautiously emerges from the ground behind him, indicating that this is a great opportunity to attack. After a short pause, he jumps out so as not to arouse his opponent's suspicions. He immediately uses the Ghost Bite skill, but is faced with the fact that his skin is too tough. The dung beetle suggests that its exoskeleton is not easily damaged, so it is better not to try. The dragon says that he expected something like this, so he has a special move for this situation. This has no effect on the dung beetle, who calmly throws it away, preventing it from penetrating his defenses. However, this dragon still manages to partially accomplish its task, since it holds a piece of scale in its teeth. He does a small somersault and then dives underground again to launch another attack. The dung beetle understands that its exoskeleton is damaged, so it needs to change its strategy immediately to avoid death. He turns around and realizes that this opponent is really cunning, so he needs to be more careful. Lola, meanwhile, fights other dinosaurs who try to shoot spikes from their backs at her. This haul turns out to be quite large, but nothing is impossible for her thanks to her increased strength. She uses the star counting skill to create a powerful barrier and repel the bone spikes. Thanks to the powerful energy force bestowed by the Insect King, she does not receive a single scratch. Now she has a small window to counterattack, so she decides to rush forward immediately. Rushing towards the enemy, she realizes that he will soon grow bone spikes, so she needs to attack now. However, the enemy has another tool to fight annoying opponents: his tail. Lola proves too slow to react in time and is forced to change tactics. At the last second, she puts her shield under the blow of the tail, and this saves her from serious damage. Her attack has no effect, so she has to quickly change the direction of her blow. Lola realizes that this enemy is very difficult to deal with, as he has high strength and a long attack range. Another dragon provokes his opponents by saying that they are nothing but a bunch of trash that is no good for anything. He constantly attacks them with gusts of wind, and because of this, the hornets say that they cannot fly properly. He adds that the pathetic star dragon fighters who challenged him will pay for their insolence. A few moments later, he decides to change his angle of attack, causing the insects to press themselves to the ground. The flower mantis somehow remains on its feet and is still trying to catch the right moment to strike. The dragon, meanwhile, declares that the pathetic bugs need to work harder, since he hasn't had his fill yet. They all think that if things continue like this, their main leader will be in serious danger. However, a few seconds later, they see one of the fighters fall dead with no chance of recovery. They look at him in surprise and realize that this is one of the strongest allies they have ever had. They ask him how it happened that he ended up in such a sad state, since he was much stronger than them. He says that one must be careful with these star insects, as they are not as weak as they appear. Colored mosquito, armored elephant, and greenwing say that these star dragon monsters are just nothing. After that, she turns her attention to the leader of the Hornet Squad, the same guy from the mine who blocked their way. She states that they are likely in for a tough fight and takes out her dagger-like blades. They also ask if they need help and promise that they will help them deal with these scoundrels.